Aged Care Forum 2025, Supporting Multicultural Communities in Regional and Rural Areas. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands we all meet today. So we will be talking today about communities as I share this beautiful artwork by Yasmin Sarin. I would like to acknowledge that they are the first artists, the first storytellers, the first creators of culture and the first communities. So I'm coming to you from the traditional lands of Darawal people, and I would like to encourage you to share your lens, which you are on coming today on the chat. And as we get in a spirit of inclusion, I would like to acknowledge the resilience and contributions of migrant and refugee communities in Australia. So in particular, we honor the Palestinian and Iranian communities, including those who have fled conflict, persecution, or displacement. So we recognize the deep pain many are carrying right now, and we stand in solidarity with all communities seeking peace, safety, and dignity. So my name is Selen Akinci. I'm coming from Multicultural Communities Council of Illawarra and representing PICAC Alliance today. And I try to MC the day, this forum. So this forum brings together aged care leaders across all Australia to connect, share and reflect on the realities of aged care in regional and rural settings, especially for multicultural communities. Today about listening, learning, building momentum for inclusive care across all areas. So a little bit housekeeping, just wanted to go through with you. This session is recording and then you will receive the record after this forum, so in this group chat. Microphones have been turned off. However, feel free to use chat section, please. And you will notice that in addition to chat section, so there is a Q&A section. So please use this way to ask your questions directly to speakers. And if there is a time, we can go through them. Otherwise, the speakers can answer you directly in the chat or as a team. So we will just gather all those questions and then we will follow up with the specific speakers. So most of all, take care of yourself through this time and be sure stand up, stretch where you need, grab a drink and quick break if you need to. So we will have a short half an hour break around 12:45 for lunch, like for the New South Wales time. And the purpose of this forum is not just to inform, it is involve and collaborate. So we are here because we have similar challenges like teen markets, workforce shortages, graphic isolation, and yet we also share a deep commitment to improving outcomes for culturally and linguistically diverse older people in all regions. So during the day, you will hear from a range of speakers sharing stories, strategies, and practical approaches. So there will be time for discussions, questions, and reflection. So there is one interactive session that we will facilitate on Mentime, is an application, so where you will be able to share your voice directly. So you will also have a chance to hear from the department and then commission and ask your questions that matters to you. So let's get started for our first session. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Vandana Rathore. Vandana is a public health and human services professional with a strong focus on culturally appropriate aged care. She works with multicultural aged care in South Australia, leading training, community engagement, and strategic projects under the PICAC program. So Vandana also contributes nationally through the PICAC Alliance and brings valuable experience from both research and practice. So she will provide an overview of the aged care landscape in Australia, highlighting the diversity of our population and how services are delivered to meet needs of multicultural communities and the ways the PICAC Alliance support aged care providers through the tailored unique resources and guidance. Thank you, Vandana. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Celine, and thank you everybody for providing me the opportunity to share something about PCAC today. I will just take 1 second and share my screen. Just so is my screen visible to everyone? I hope. Yep. So I am, as Celine said, talking to you today a little bit about culturally appropriate aged care in rural and regional areas, more from the PCAC perspective. PCAC is, I would like to tell everyone, is Partners in Culturally Appropriate Care. Um, Before I start, thank you for that lovely acknowledgement to the country, Selene. I would also like to acknowledge the land that I'm joining everyone today from. It's the land of the Ghana people. And in joining the meeting today, we would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge and honor the Ghana people's traditional ownership of Adelaide Plains, the land where I'm joining everyone for, the living culture and the unique role they've played in the life of this region, and extend and pay our respects to everybody else who's joining from other beautiful lands. To start with, I would just like to talk about the aged care landscape in Australia. And in this presentation, I will be speaking about the culturally appropriate care in rural and regional areas of Australia and how the PCAC program, which is the Partners in Culturally Appropriate Care, enables a collective and strategic response to support the sector in meeting the needs of culturally and linguistically diverse older people. As we usually start all the presentations, we've got some numbers and data that's sourced from the government records there. But just to sum it up as a national picture, Australia has over 9,000 aged care services being delivered by more than 3,000 providers. And a third of these home support services and 21% of these residential services do exist in the rural, remote, or very remote areas. Now, if you add to this the complexity and the challenge of our population's diversity, with 1 in 3 older Australians being born overseas and nearly 1 in 6 out of those who speak a language other than English at home. So, not only is our aging population growing with a projected growth of 9.6 million in the next few years up to 2066. The question we also face is, are we ready to serve this population? And on top of that, are we ready to serve them in a culturally appropriate manner as well? Because a third of this population is very, very diverse and multicultural. If we take our lens a little bit towards the regional and the remote areas, we have some compounded challenges that the providers face here, which could be right from the limited access of services, especially culturally appropriate aged care services within these areas, limited access and difficulty attracting diverse workforce in the regional and remote areas, and also the resource gap. So what PCAC program does is respond to this challenge. It's the Partners in Culturally Appropriate Care. I'm just saying the name again so that it just kind of seeps down. That what we do is we support aged care providers, and more so especially in the regional and remote areas, to better serve the older, cold Australians. And some of our key activities are training, tailored consultations, advisory services, resources, and community engagement. So PCAC program, just as a brief overview, I'd like to tell you it is a national initiative that was established in 97, and since 2011 it has been a program. Now on the slide, I've just got a few numbers and data there for you. I'll just summarize it really quick. This is from 2016. We don't have this sort of a breakup for 2021 census data. Just to give you a sense of the diversity of the population in the regional areas, the older Australians who were born overseas by the different state and territory and remoteness, and the data is in percentages. If you go onto this particular website, and the web link is there on the slides, happy to share it in chat later, you can actually, it's an interactive map of Australia. You can go down to the different regions and have a look at the percentage of population where the Australians were born overseas. It may not be reflecting the cultural and linguistic diversity, but it does reflect people who were born overseas and are older and living in these areas. Now, I would just like to move one by one because we are a PCAC Alliance, which is a unified body of all the different PCAC-funded organizations across Australia, one each in a state and territory. So I'd like to start with PCAC Victoria and just give you an overview of the different activities and our responses to this challenge that we engage with in the regional communities. So I would start with PCAC Victoria, which is the Center for Cultural Diversity in Aging, and talk a little bit about their regional engagement and training. Just a brief overview of the local government areas in Victoria. They cover quite a vast range from Gippsland to Wimmera. And this is an indication of how the regional population is growing over time. The 2021 census says for all over Victoria as a state, the key called older groups predominantly belong to Italian, Greek, and Chinese backgrounds. And some of the key focus areas that PCAC Victoria delivers their services and training and workshops in are, including webinars, are inclusive lifestyle programs, cultural awareness training, embedding diversity in practice. They help services see aged care not just through the clinical lens, but also through a cultural lens, which is very essential, specifically when responding to the aged care quality standards, as most of the providers across the board would understand. I would like to mention the Diversity Mentoring Program, which is one of their standout programs designed for senior leadership within the aged care sector to enhance inclusive care governance over a span of 6 to 12 months. And along with PCAC Victoria, I know this program is also offered in Western Australia and New South Wales. Just a quick shout out to the resources. At the end of every PCAC's little slide, I will talk about resources because it's such a rich, valuable, I would just say it's a valuable bank of resources for everyone to go and delve into. So they've got resources which are very accessible, contain multilingual signage, cue cards, inclusive practice guides, webinars, podcasts. So if providers are interested, I would really encourage you to go and scan that QR code, have a look at the vast array of resources that they have. I will now move on to Northern Territory. So our PCAC organization in Northern Territory is COTA Northern Territory, the Council on Aging NT. They also cover a vast area of local government areas in the regional and remote. The regional population growth, again, in Northern Territory is growing. In general, the community in Northern Territory overall includes seniors from diverse cultural backgrounds, predominantly from Italian, Greek, Vietnamese, Timorese, Filipino, and Indian backgrounds, and many of these are living in the remote and very remote areas with limited access to culturally appropriate aged care. So what PCAC NT does is they respond through direct engagement at expos, tailored workshops via the Aged Care Navigator program that COTA NT does, translated resources, and providing regular support to providers through inclusive care training and tailored information packages for the older people they support. So they have support both for consumers as well as for the service providers. Some of their key engagements is what I've listed on the slide there. And as I mentioned, their key focus areas really are providing resources and free translation to communicate with your cold clients. If there are service providers in NT who are looking for free translations, please contact COTA NT and they'll be able to help you with that. And I would just like to draw your attention to some of the specific resources which are excellent for you to go and access and have a look at. They've got the Cold Seniors Toolkit, the contract checklist for provider in up to 57 languages, and as well as for the clients as well, in addition to the communication cards, phrase cards, and other multilingual resources. I will continue to move and go towards Queensland. So in Queensland, our PCAC-funded organization is the Ethnic Communities Council of Queensland, ECCQ, and their program is called the Multicultural Partners in there, which supports Queensland's aged care sector to meet the strengthened aged care quality standards, again, in providing care to people from COLD backgrounds via training, mentoring, and information resources. Queensland also covers quite a bit of local government areas in their regional scape, and this is a general idea of the population growth in Queensland, very much similar to the national picture. They've also given a 10-year projection. The key older cold cohorts as per the census 2021, in the whole of Queensland include people from Italian, German, and Chinese backgrounds, and there are other communities which are rising as well. As multicultural partners, they support the sector, like I said, in meeting the strengthened aged care quality standards through training, advocacy, and resources that embed diversity in practice. They provide face-to-face as well as hybrid professional development workshops. And one of their key workshops is the cultural awareness training, which they provide even as a flexible online education to support the aged care workforce. And they focus on strategies to ensure and promote belonging in aged care settings for the cold consumers. Again, like all the other PCAGs, I'd encourage you to go ahead and check their resources online. There's a lot for you to go and explore there. If I'm going too fast, feel free to stop me in between, Selene. I feel I'm pretty much in time right now. I would then move to MCCI, who are hosting us today. That's the PCAC New South Wales and ACT, Multicultural Community Council of Illawarra. And let me talk a little bit about their regional engagement and training. And I would encourage Selene and her team to chip in if I miss something here, because they're the experts here. So they do a host of practical, very inclusive training, which they host regional roundtables as well that bring together the local community leaders, service providers to strengthen access to aged care for cold communities in very specific regional and rural areas. And some of their key focus areas are culture and dementia, culture and end-of-life care, working with newer and emerging communities, working with diverse workforce in teams. And their training is also very much flexible, both face-to-face and online. These sessions can include tailored content for diverse workforce, and because it's flexible, the workforce can go back in their own time and access these trainings, because we do know and acknowledge that regional areas frequently will have staffing issues and also staff from varied cultural backgrounds. So the training is tailored to accommodate their needs. A quick focus on the Cold Ways course, which is an approach for regional and rural engagement. And these courses are self-paced, online. They can be done to accommodate the staff's busy working schedule. They do provide you with a certification at the end of it, and they're short, 40 minutes per course. So it's doable for the staff as well. And they have a multicultural hub where there's a lot of resources for aged care providers, including translation interpreting services, unconscious bias, diverse workforce, trauma-informed care. So I'd encourage you to go and have a look at the Multicultural Hub, which is a consolidated resource hub there. And just like all the other PCACs, have a quick look. Most of the resource pages are full of information that may be really useful for the providers. Okay, I think I've done half the states there. I might catch my breath for a second, and I'll go to Western Australia. In Western Australia, our PCAC provider is Fortis Consulting, and we'll talk a little bit about what they do. So Fortis Consulting, again, operates in a really vast and remote region. Now, Western Australia, we need to acknowledge that it has a vast geography, and the rural and remote itself is a huge region for them to cover. So they really cover the breadth of it. Some of the predominant cold groups that they work with in Western Australia are from Italian, Chinese, and Indian backgrounds. And with this vast geography and diverse demographics of the region, reaching out successfully to each provider is a challenge and an opportunity on its own. And if done well, it really lays the foundation for consistent engagement and capacity building. So what Western Australia does really well is reach out to all the aged care providers on a personal basis, contact them over the course of the calendar year through in-person visits, phone calls, and emails, and the contact and follow-up is quite regular. They ensure that they do reach out to everyone, even if they don't hear back from them in the first instance. And they provide individual service providers support according to their needs, but the key focus areas that they have include the cold aged care specifics, diversity inclusion, talking about translation service, palliative care, end of life, and specialist verification services. So regional work with Western Australia integrates the cold perspective across these focus areas. As with all the PCACs, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and have a look at the resources that Fortis Consulting has on their website. There's a QR code for you. And towards the end of the presentation, I'll share another QR code where you can find all these resources consolidated in one space. So as I move to Tasmania, our PCAC funded partner organization in Tasmania is Migrant Resource Centre. And much like the other states, Tasmania's aging population growth is reflecting the recent migration trends. As they say, in the June quarter of 24, Tasmania has recorded a net overseas migration. So we have to acknowledge that in all the states, besides the older cold population, there is also, while I cannot exactly give you the number there, and there's a caveat, but there is an increasing number of humanitarian settlement program refugees who are coming in, and they're over 65 years of age, and they also form a significant part of this cohort. So Tasmania presents this unique picture. They do have a rapidly aging community, and at the moment, the census in 21 says the rising communities are the Greek and Chinese in the older cohorts. So I apologize for the slight blurriness of this slide. I just did not have any other picture that I could get in from Tasmania, but I will just read it out for your benefit. The key focus areas that they have: they work with interpreter training. They have a cultural awareness training with an aged care lens, diversity and dementia training, know me, know my culture training, and they've just included a new module on intergenerational cultural lens training. So these are the key focuses. But like all the other PCACs, if the service providers have some unique needs, all the PCACs are happy to tailor content. So Tasmania focuses on the 4 pillars of aged care providers: called consumers, government, and peak bodies. I would welcome you to go ahead and have a look at their resource pages. It includes flyers, a welcome pack for newly arrived migrants, how to give feedback forms, how to connect to my aged care services, and they also provide aged care navigation through CareFinder. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Just some successful events in communities in Tasmania that they've recently done, including some cultural festivals and celebration, welcome pack that I talked about, Seniors Week, and some other resources and information sessions. And last but not really the least, moving towards my own state, which is Multicultural Aged Care, PCAC South Australia. I have to acknowledge that all the regional and remote areas across Australia look very different, have very different demography. That's why each PCAC understands, and while we provide some consistent services across the board in training, webinars, workshops, but I would like to emphasize they're all very much tailored uniquely to the demographics, the needs of the regions. So in South Australia, we work across the region extensively from Port Augusta to Murray Bridge and Limestone Coast. And I can tell you personally because I have driven across these areas delivering sessions. And our aging cohort in terms of cultural and linguistic diversity is predominantly Greek, Italian, and German, but we do have new and emerging communities, Chinese, Vietnamese, and also the Indian. So we have these new and emerging groups in minority now. Some of the key focus areas that we have, I would like to emphasize one of our strengths really lies in customized cultural awareness, training, and education. And our staff here is trained in cultural intelligence, and they are what you call the cultural detectives. It's an internationally accredited training that our staff has undergone, so they can really support you through on-demand language other than English-specific trainings, webinars, symposiums, both hybrid, flexible, online, face-to-face. We also support armchair travel. If there are service providers who would like to create armchair travels which are specific to a culture, we also support all our training, and all the material that we do is really underpinned by the cultural intelligence model there. Just a quick summary, there's a lot out there, but we're not just out there raising awareness, we're also trying to build skills, tools, and practical strategies. So right from the Commonwealth Home Support Program workforce, because we often find in our regional areas there is an overlap between PCAC and Commonwealth Home Support. So we try to bring those topics of conversation right from reforms to the cultural awareness trainings to help the staff be more responsive and proactive in their services. One key unique feature that we have in South Australia, we've got a mobile library. While we do have an in-house library which has resources for lifestyle staff, including all aged care staff, but we also bring this library to the regions when we travel. So we do not want the regional providers to miss out on connecting with such great resources. So we've got a library that everyone can be a member of. It's free of cost, and there's books, DVDs, music, activities, just any resource you can think of when working with your culturally and linguistically diverse clients, and we'll be able to provide that to you. You're welcome to go and have a look at our resources page as well. We've got a multicultural calendar, fact sheets, bibliographies, reminiscence, spirituality, and more. And just as I'm coming towards the end of my presentation, I'd like to give a little vignette of different PCACs doing their sessions. It's just a way to say that this is how we work together across the nation. And this is a QR code I'd encourage everyone to scan and go through. At the moment, the PCAC Alliance website is undergoing a revamp. This QR code is going to land you onto MAC or PCAC SA's webpage because we're the secretariat, so we're hosting all the information on our page until our website is ready to go. So this will connect you to all the different PCACs, and you can get connected to their resources at this as well if you've missed the previous QR codes. And just as a conclusion, I'd like to say, as different PCAC funded organization, what really brings all of us together is PCAC Alliance, and it's our shared mission and commitment to work nationally, acting locally. And each PCAC is very well attuned to the region's unique demographics, needs, and challenges. We're all working towards the same goal, that is an aged care system that respects, reflects, and includes everyone, especially our older people from the CALD backgrounds, and they should be receiving culturally appropriate care. Thank you so much for providing me the opportunity to talk about this important program and the service we're providing towards building an aged care system that's culturally safe, inclusive, and ready for the future. So if there are any questions at this point, I hope I'm well in my time. I didn't go too fast, too slow.
Thank you so much, Vandana, for all those valuable, insightful information. So, no, you did very well. Actually, it's like we are a little bit early. So we have 15 minutes more, so we can get the questions. By the way, I just would like to mention all those, the presentations are going to be shared with the registrations, like with all attendees. So if you miss any of the QR code, any of the informations, and then the contact details, don't worry. So you will receive all those information. So after this forum, but I would like to like a little bit skim the Q&A section. Let's see what is there. And is asking, does PCAC provide dementia-specific services? So, and not the services, but we do provide training the sessions for aged care providers. So it's culture and dementia, as the Vandana mentioned. So like many of we all doing a different things as PCAC Alliance. But I can just talk behalf of the PCAC New South Wales and ACT, and then many more. So we do provide cultural perspective of dementia training, like what like specific individual, the multicultural background people are, like what their perspective about the dementia or end of life care or so. So yes, like if you and any your organization need any training, so after you receive those the presentations, so please contact any of the PCAC Alliance. Like I don't know which state you are in because like I'm not able to see that. And Vandana, yeah, please, like, is there anything?
Yes, I would just add, at least from South Australia's perspective, and I do see a lot of my other PCAC colleagues here, so feel free to chip in from your state. But in South Australia, yes, we do deliver some training for service providers in understanding dementia care from a cold perspective, and we do partner with clinical experts who can come in and do the clinical perspective, and we
Yeah.
bring in the cultural perspective, and we see how that ties well.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's any other PCAC colleagues here who would like
Yeah.
to chip in from different states.
Yeah, similar approach. So as like we are working with the experts that they are providing the clinical part of the dementia, and then we are covering the multicultural part of it. So I'm sure it's like all the PCAC members are somewhere, but I'm not able to see anyone yet. So I'm just looking for mental. I don't see any mental health support. So apologies. Do you know if any? It's been answered by Gail, like from PCAC News, that was an ACT, but Vandana, would you like to say anything? So they are saying, so is there any multicultural health support or maybe resources they are looking for?
I'm just wondering which state you're in, because at least for South Australia, I'm very aware
Mm-hmm.
we've got the STARS program, which is specifically mental health support for multicultural communities. We've also, and that covers the older people as well. There is
Yeah,
also Relationships Australia SA, which provides that multicultural support here in South Australia. And
yeah,
I'm hoping we will have similar services across other states.
yeah.
And in terms of
Same.
what PCAC does, we do go and talk to different providers and again, collaborate with the mental health care providers to come and talk.
Mm-hmm.
We have support, psychological support funded by the government in residential aged cares as well. So we've
Mm-hmm.
got, it's called the SO program, Support for Emotional Wellness in South
Mm-hmm.
Australia for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a similar approach. So and I can see the Leonie. She said that Aspect have mental health resources. Yeah, okay, regional. I seem to find mental health is a huge roadblock to all Aboriginal and cold lines. Yeah, and I can definitely agree with that, Leonie. So we do have, like when you receive that the presentation. So when you go to the Multicultural Hub and then through these QR codes you will see the many of the in language also mental health resources for individuals, and I would like to include that one to carers as well. So not just on the individuals like older people, but for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, like all focus area is the cultural and linguistic, the diverse background, but there are many the organizations like focusing on the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander services too. I'm just looking. Sorry, I'm just still skimming. Joining from the lands, Melbourne. Thanks, Wandana. All right, so I'm just going back to Q&A again, whether we have additional questions. Yep, that's it. All right. Thank you so much, Vandana. So I'm not sure is like the Jenny is here, so, but like we turn to a topic that affects us all, which is workforce. Our next speaker is Jenny Hutchings. Jenny is the CEO of Verigal Aged Care Provider. She's a psychologist and Churchill Fellow. So Jenny brings year of leadership experience in community and aged care services, and she's a strong advocate for inclusive, high quality care across all life stages. So today's Jenny will unpack the key workforce challenges in regional aged care and share ideas around recruitment, culturally competent staff, and sustainable workforce models. So welcome, Jenny. I'm not able to see you, but we are with you now.
Well, I'm here. Hello, everyone. How
Great.
are you? I'm just going to share my screen. Is that all right, Celine?
Yeah, of course, certainly. Thank you,
Um,
Jenny.
okay, let me just put it on. It, it's always one of those things where it just never goes as right. Let's see if it's going to let me share.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Let me see what we can do here. I'm sorry, my...
No, not at all. Something is coming up. Here you go. So we can see your the slides with notes. Maybe
yeah.
You unshare.
And then I was going to use...
Yeah. If you're using the second two screens, so maybe use the other one. Excellent.
Yes, that's perfect,
yeah, great.
isn't it?
Perfect. Yes, it is. Yeah, thank you,
Hello.
Jenny.
Yeah, lovely. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry about that. Sometimes I can be a little bit IT inept. So I just wanted to start off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. And where we are today, it's where I am today, I should say, it's Wadi people of the Dharawal Nation. I'd like to pay my respect and that of Warrigal and certainly MCCI to elders past, present and emerging. The beauty about our the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture is their respect for their elders, and I think there's a lot of learnings we can do there around that. So I'm going to kick off talking about inclusive workforce strategies. And before I do, I'll tell you a little bit about Warrigal. Warrigal's a not-for-profit organisation that's been around for about 60 years. We have a vision that you can see on the screen, a world where older people feel known, loved and connected. And I'd love you to think about what that means for you if you feel known, if you feel loved and if you feel connected, and what that means for you or your community. Because there are three elements of the essence of human beings that are really important. And I'll talk a bit about that. So I'm going to talk about tangible and intangible strategies around regional and rural aged care and an inclusive workforce. We have, as you would well know, a massive workforce shortage across aged care, and we're about 20,000 nurses short across Australia to meet the growing need of aged care in Australia. In the next 20 or 30 years, we'll see people over the age of 65, the population double. And because of that, we need to prepare now for what that looks like for the future. So I will just kick on. You can see that I've got a slide up here about diversity, because diversity and inclusion means something different to everyone. And this slide always gets me when I think about the slide, because inclusion, diversity, it has something different, and sometimes multiple of those pieces mean something for a person, and sometimes just one of those pieces means something for a person. So I always pop that up there to explain the importance of diversity and how much richness and experience that brings to an organisation, whether it's a small organisation or an organisation of our size. It brings skill, it brings approach, and it brings different knowledge bases. And one of the rich stories I carry with me is about a story from Goulburn, where we had a family who was feeling a bit disenfranchised from our organisation, but their mum started palliating. And our Palm staff, our Pacific Island staff, came around and sung that woman to her passing. And the love and the connection that was felt in the room that day categorically changed how that family felt about Warrigal and indeed our staff. And so what I find happens in our organisation is we bring that richness of knowledge from other cultures into the learnings of our organisation about how we can help our clients and customers. And I will say that we have actually invested roughly about $4 to $5 million in our approach because of the size of Warrigal. This slide shows our demography of our staff, and I put it up there so you can see just how diverse it is. it shows not only it shows the cultural diversity of our workforce, and it also shows that whilst Australian-born staff are the largest proportion, if you add up all the other staff from the multiple different communities they come from, it actually is more than the staff that are Australian-born. You can see that Nepalese is next for us, and then our Indian and Fijian and Filipino staff that have come to work here and have come to be in Australia. So it's quite diverse, as you can see. It's interesting when I talk about culture, and I'll say this, and I'll say it and wear it as a badge of pride, but as an organisation, we've got culturally diverse team, but we focus on having one culture as an organisation, a culture where people feel valued, respected, heard, listened to. And to that end, we ran a cultural engagement survey recently for our staff, and we had 2,179 staff tell us their views about what they thought about working at Warragul. It was roughly a 98% return rate on that survey, which broke all records for our survey provider. And the reason I say that that's important, because the message I got from that is our staff felt that they were going to be listened to. If they responded to that survey, they felt they were going to be listened to. So they did respond, and we will listen, and we will build an action plan, and we'll tell our people what we're doing. So often I talk about that celebration of culture that comes into the organisation, but I also talk about how do you think about building a culture within your organisation to retain staff, to value staff, to listen to them, and actually understand the added contributions, the richness of other people's cultures that come into our organisation, how much they add value to who we are and what we do in our communities. So challenges and success strategies. Today I'm going to mainly talk about Goulburn and Bundanoon, because they're two very regional and rural areas where we have the biggest challenge in terms of recruiting staff. So in terms of challenges, you can see on the left there that we often have a challenge in not only recruiting but retaining aged care workers into these communities. Often housing is a main challenge, particularly in Bundanoon, I might say, and also in Goulburn. The visa approval times, particularly for the training visa, the 407 visa, are extensive and long. And there are some visas that we put in for last October, and we're still waiting, and the government is telling us that we'll wait until about October of this coming October, so 12 months. Supporting our newly arrived staff, so assisting our people to come into a community, but come into an organisation and feel safe and feel supported and feel connected. And we need to do that very early on, but also continue to do it. And then understand what the challenges and complications are about transitioning into a new community and a remote community such as Bundanoon or Goulburn. In terms of strategies that we've found work really well, we have 2 support workers or welfare workers to assist staff with integration into Australia and the community as well, and the organisation. We provide housing for a period of time. We provide local induction, but as well as an organisational induction. So we break it into 2. There's a 3-day induction, Welcome to Warragul, we call it, or the WOW course. And we also have a local induction to introduce people to their into their community and into the home in which they'll be working. The areas that we feel need a focus in our Welcome to Warragul is talking about our vision, our values, and our culture. And because what we want is people to be aligned to that vision, where a world where older people feel known, loved, and connected. We want them to think about, what does that look like? How would you know if someone felt known? How would you know if someone felt loved? What does connection look like? And then we want them to think about how they contribute to the culture of Warragul. We have a diversity action plan, so we spent a lot of time writing it, consulting on it, and then I signed it off. And we abide by that action plan, and we have targets within the action plan which we aim to meet. Some of the, and I'll go on to a couple of pictures in a minute, but some of the things we do is also celebrate cultural diversity. And we've linked both the diversity action plan, our communication plans, and our celebrations to our strategic plan. I do want to say that at times what I hear about is systemic racism in Australia. And I recognise that that's an issue that sometimes people feel that they need to, that people experience. And some of the ways we address that is by being very proactive in our approach around celebrating diversity, about celebrating cultures, about recognising what cultural diversity brings to our organisation, that community, and also to our clients and customers. We've done a couple of things. We went to, these pictures of Bundanoon. In the top right-hand corner, you can see Welcome to Bundanoon. The community, led by the woman in the green and white dress in the bottom right-hand corner photo, wanted to celebrate our Palm staff and thank them for being in our community. So they put on a Welcome to Bundanoon event for these staff. And that woman, I think, is a godmother to one of the women's children in that photo. So she's very, very proud and celebratory of the work that our Palm staff do in Bundanoon. And it's lovely when the richness of a community wrap around our staff and thank them for being in the community and for the work they do. This photo, the man in the white shirt and the red tie, is the chair of the board, Wyn Jansen. He is a man that has dedicated for the last 27 years his time to this organisation. We've been built on volunteering. We have 513 volunteers across our organisation, and he attended the Fijian High Commission to recognise and thank the staff for the work they do in our communities, and we also recognise the impact that has on their communities back home. And I say that because leadership starts at the top, and celebration of culture, respecting inclusion, understanding the impact of coming to Australia from someone's homeland and that separation, what that means for a community. And as a leader, as the chair of the board, he recognises that and thanks our staff for it. And I think that, whilst some people might see it as symbolic, I actually think it sends a strong leadership message from the top about the importance of being a culturally diverse and inclusive community. And of course, I never follow my notes, so just excuse me while I see if I can find where I'm up to. In Warragul, we have a number of different strategies, and I might have pointed out just before the volume of dollar we've applied to it. Now, I say that because we're a large organisation. We've got roughly 2,300 staff. We've got 13 homes, we've got 12 villages and about 1,200 home services and CHSP clients. So in terms of that, the number of staff we need to meet the need of our communities is quite high. We also know with the changes to the legislation, what we're going to see is a penalisation plan coming into force from about October. So from February next year, if we haven't met the care minutes in our homes, we will be financially penalised. Those care minutes are broken up into two parts. It is for a volume of care minutes for registered nurses and a volume of care minutes for personal care workers. So a financial penalty indicates to the government they're serious about organisations meeting those care minutes. But actually our ability to do it without having international pathways is limited because we, as I said before, we are short on nurses. So we have a APRA RN pipeline, international pipeline for registered nurses, and we have an ASILA agreement. We use that ASILA agreement to support visa applications for our current staff to transition from being a PALM staff member and to apply for permanent residency for a 186 visa. And you can see some of the data in there that we've already supported 69 employees, and we are working through with about another nearly 20 staff. I was speaking to one this week from our PALM staff to actually become permanent residents in Australia. It's a lot of work, but it is important work, and what it does do is give us and our residents permanency. So what we have had absolutely no turnover in our staff that have come through that ASILA agreement process. So that tells you the staff have come here, they want to be here, and they're supportive of the ASILA process. So that's been really exciting for us. But it's actually really good for our residents who see the same face every day. It is a full-time program, so you must be working full-time to be able to access that program, the ASILA program. And as I said, it's really good for our residents. I feel like I'm talking into thin air, so I'm sure Salem will tell me if there are any questions. I remember back earlier I said there are tactical and intangible strategies, and some of those strategies are documented here. What I think is important is that our staff in our communities and in our homes support our people coming into our homes, so feel engaged and connected, that we actually have the dedicated advisor role, but we actually, for any supervisors of our PALM staff or any of our international staff, they do go through cultural training to understand the community from which our workers have come from. We provide health education and cultural awareness training. We also make sure that our staff who are coming to Australia understand their ability to access healthcare for themselves. There's counselling and EAP services, and obviously, as I've mentioned before, the approach towards celebrating diversity. This year, we've also been applying ourselves to thinking about what does wellbeing look like in our employees, and we've started off a wellbeing talk series so that we can target a great proportion of our staff and the areas to which staff worry about. At the moment, we've heard staff worry about men's mental health, women's mental health, and menopause are three of the areas that our staff have said they worry about, and we've got speakers coming in to talk to our staff about those areas. Partnerships, this might include MCCI. We have also accessed support through MCCI via the Welcome Experience. And that experience has been a vital partner in ensuring holistic support for our people. The cultural orientation and community navigation assistance, emotional and social wellbeing through settlement check-ins, and the group engagement sessions have been critical to the success of people feeling safe and happy. And there's also been assistance with accessing community services, including language supports and our health systems, family services, school selection and enrolment, and so on. I know I mentioned our voice survey. This is a little bit of a breakdown for some of our communities that have come to, of staff that have come here and work with us. What we want to understand is there a difference with the staff depending on their cultural heritage, and what do we need to do to improve the outcomes? So in our survey, as I said, 98% of our staff responded. So this is valid and reliable data. We know that. So not only did they fill it in, but what we've committed to is to build an action plan so that what we see today in 12 months' time, when people fill it in, hopefully we'll see an improvement. So our commitment to our people is to take action from our survey. Overall, all of our results is 73 questions, on average improved by 8% on every question. Not one question went backwards from last year. So that's telling me we're doing a good job, and we're doing a good job at listening, but we can still do better. And so if I could recommend anything to you, do staff engagement surveys and understand how staff feel. And it gives you a micro view into the sort of things that you could do to improve outcomes for your staffing cohort. We use XREF, just by the way, if you're wondering where does this come from, we use a product called XREF. So you can see there's a difference across both engagement and wellbeing for the different cohorts. And what that does for us is give us an opportunity to create change by dissecting that and considering what we can do for the different communities. And in terms of engagement, look at our Fijian staff, 98%, it's remarkable. We also foster connections through language and culture, and in our regional locations we support the inclusion of called volunteers by partnering with external organisations such as the Aged Care Volunteer Visitors Scheme. This has proven to be really effective and meaningful for our organisation. We work with these volunteers and other community-based programs to engage volunteers from very diverse backgrounds, and then we undertake cultural matching or pairing, so those volunteers are matched with some of our customers, and that becomes a socially enriching experience, both for the volunteer but actually for the programs in which we use them. It also gives an opportunity for our customers and residents to use their first language. As people age, what we find in our home is that our older people move towards their first language and start to lose some of the English that they had developed over time. We have cultural peer groups as well as small cultural groups to foster peer friendship and improve emotional well-being. This, you can see these are some photos from, I know that photo is a double up with Win, but this was at the Fijian High Commission. These photos were taken. We often, at different celebrations that we do, we often ask our staff if there's any cultural celebrations that they want to do, and we do those. We recently had an event at an MCCI, we're there at Shell Harbour Council, and our staff actually dance there as well, so it's quite lovely. So key learnings and looking ahead. Look, we think there's more we could do, and but I'm doing the royal we, I'm doing Australia, I'm doing the government, But funding the Certificate 3 and recognition of prior learning for our staff who are really learning on the job about aged care, and it's mandated under the new legislation, so it's got to happen. But we actually would love it if the government would partner with us on the funding of that. It is a lot of money. We're committed to it, but it would be really helpful if the government could assist in that. A designated area migration agreement, or DAMA as they're known for short, would be beneficial in the Illawarra region, and it's an agreement that enables different regional areas to respond to their unique economic circumstance and workforce needs. And we know in this area that it's definitely a need, and it's a need in Bundanoon and Goulburn as well. There's a range of concessions that are available under the DAMA, and so they're very handy to get so that you can use them, and it'd provide another accessible pathway for registered nurses and personal care workers. The other learning is contextualise. We're always thinking and learning about how we can do things differently, and how we can think about what do we have here in Warragul and how can we apply that in so many different ways. So we're always thinking and incrementally changing. We're always thinking about how we do a Lego approach to building our culture, and we discuss the behaviours we want to see overtly. So these are the behaviours we want to see, and we also discuss the behaviours that we don't want to see overtly. And we're very clear from the outset that no form of racism or discrimination is tolerated in our organisation. I think there's a lot of trial and error, and each individual situation is different. There's no one size fits all, and you've got to try a lot of unique pathways to be successful. But we are committed to doing that and being an organisation that partners with community to welcome people into our fold. I might leave it. What have I got there? I might leave it there and see if there are any questions, Celine. I'm going to stop questions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jenny. So
I know I ran through that, so I'm so sorry.
No, it was so good. Yeah, it was very encouraging to hear the practical workforce solutions, like on the grounded, and then like from your lived experience as well. So we really appreciate it. Like I remember, like we were part of establishing the diversity action plan with Warragul, ASPCAC New South Wales and ACT. I think we worked together with that. And then thank you so much for highlighting the impact of the systemic and then all those racism in aged care towards staff members. It's a very, very critical issue that too often goes unspoken. So we have one of the guides, like that tackling racism guide, like for aged care providers, like for managers and then staff members, like like the what to do, and then like how organizations can be more inclusive. So let's go to, I'm just looking for the chat and Q&A for if there is any questions. It is on gallery. So there is one question, says, can you provide what percentage of First Nations workforce is in within Warragul? I'm not sure. So would you like to, do you have the numbers now, or would you like to come back to that question later on?
I wouldn't have the numbers now. I do know it's around 3 or 4%. But I don't have the exact number. The beauty of our cultural engagement survey is what we do is we do ask our staff to provide some demographic detail. Our survey is anonymous, and we commit to our staff that our survey is anonymous. Yeah. It's run by a third party, so the staff can be comfortable and knowledgeable on that. But what we can do, as you saw, is that we can have a look at what are our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people saying about how they feel about working at Warragul. And what could we, and if their scores are lower, what can we do differently? I'm really committed to improving outcomes for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. They die earlier, they have worse health outcomes, and our job in our lifetime is to change that. So I haven't got absolute criticality of the percentage of people, and I will also say it's always voluntary around whether you identify or not as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. But what we can do is create the safety to provide that information and know that people are welcomed and supported and included in our community. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Despite the patients, I tried getting into MCCI, but I couldn't. This probably explains the recruitment process. Sandra, sorry, I couldn't understand your question, or it was just only a comment. But if is it MCCI? Very good. You are talking, but we have you can just email directly to admin@mcci.org.au. So if you have a specific inquiries about the recruitment or any other things. So we can just put the admin email into chat now. And yes, not just for RAC, this is a financial impact is home care too. I think that is a comment, not a question. ASILA process. So how can I find about more ASILA process? So Jane already shared the link, but Jenny, would you like to add anything on that?
Sorry, add anything on?
Is I came in. How can I find more about the ASILA process?
Yeah, I've seen someone's put a link in there for it.
Yeah.
So I would definitely follow that link. Look, we have a terrific. I'm just going to put her email in here and apologise to her later because she's an amazing woman. Our Chief of People and Culture. That's her email address, bless her.
Excellent.
And if you wanted any quick check-ins with her, I'm sure she'd do it. She's a fabulous woman. And she really, I always talk about leadership being part head and part heart. And that's how we need to operate as leaders in organisation where there's diversity. And so I have to lead with my head around financial acuity and having a strong organisation, but I need to lead with my heart when it comes to people. And blending those two together as a leader is critical. And I often say in our organisation that as leaders, and no doubt everybody in this room, we have to see ourselves as professors of humanity. And so how do we show humanity wherever we go? And so if we can wear that on our shoulder as a bit of an angel on our shoulder, how do I present today as a professor of humanity? Then I think we're doing a good job. So sometimes it's attitude, sometimes it's dollars, and sometimes it's both. And I think we'll get there if we all work in partnership.
Oh, amazing say, Jenny. Thank you. That's great. So, and then there is a welcome experience. Thank you, Melissa. You shared the welcome experience link there. So welcome experience, like I'm sure in the many other the regional areas, so organizations they're delivering that service. It's a free service that helps essential workers and their families, like they settle in the regional New South Wales, by supporting them with housing, schools, and jobs for partners and connecting with the local community.
Terrific. So, absolutely terrific. There's a question there about our residents not wanting care by staff from overseas. That hasn't come to me, Paul, that's been an experience, though One of my staff used to work in a mixed role. She used to work in my office, but then work in one of the homes. And so she talked to me about sometimes how our staff were treated with disrespect, and she didn't like it. So we did go out to the homes, and that's when we actually started our diversity action plan to actually have internal and external communication messages. Those messages were not only to our staff, they were to our residents and their families as well. And there was one man that, as I said, we've got 1,643 beds across 13 homes, but one man's behaviour I didn't like. And I went and saw him myself. And I said to him, of all the people, of all the homes we've got, I've never come to speak to a resident about something I'm concerned about, but I've come to speak to you. And I don't want you to treat our people the way you're treating them. They don't like it. They've become scared. They don't want to come in your room, and you've hurt them. Now, I want a commitment from you that you will not do this again. And so I had a big conversation with him. I had the manager in the room and I had the chief of operations in the room. And I had that conversation with him. And I also spoke to his brother as well, for a whole range of reasons. So I wanted them to know from the top of the tree to him that behaviour wouldn't be tolerated. And I think it's important that people get that message.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jenny. So, and Ian mentioned, so you are on the top of the questions as well, Jenny. Thank you so much for that. So Ian mentioned the Aquas programs. So definitely, this is a great the volunteering program. So if you haven't heard it, please are we able to share the link on the chat as well for the Aquas program for aged care providers.
Yeah. In terms of cultural differences, and once again, I don't have the data for the cultural difference of our residents, but one of our homes is called Warragul Multicultural, and it was built for people who came here who had no family around and wanted to and came to Australia, and so it's a village or a home built by the multicultural community. And when you walk in, you feel the heart of this home. You really do. And so we do have a great diversity of residents, but I couldn't tell you what it is, but it varies across our homes. So Warragul Multicultural is really diverse. What we do know now, though, is with this, with what they call the bed block, or what I prefer to call long stay older patients or delayed discharge, we know that at times it's whatever bed's available in whatever home is what families or older people are targeting. So whilst Warragul Multicultural is called that, the diversity is very broad. Lots of Macedonian families, lots of people, lots of Italian, and lots of Maltese is what I'll say is there, but I don't have the percentages with me.
Yeah, all good. Great. Thank you. So do we still have time? All right. Okay. So we can go. Jenny, so how are you going? So can we ask a couple of more questions maybe? Is that okay? I think we're just going to share the recordings will be available, and then we are able to share the PowerPoint on this presentation. Can we, Jenny? Yeah.
Yep.
I think so. Yep. Thank you. Do you have a provide placement for training personal workers?
It's a good question. We're only talking about traineeships this morning, actually. It's a really good question. We do start people very early in this organisation. We have a program called ACE, and it's won an award. So I'll tell you that because it's very exciting when you win an award. And it's called Assistant Care Employee, and we target young people at school from about the age of 16 or 17. Now, tell me if this is what this person is looking for. And we target them while they're at school because we want to tell them aged care is a place to work. It's a vocation. You can develop a career in aged care. And what we've found is we've got something like a 98% retention rate of our assistant care employees. They are not there to do personal care because it's really about respect and dignity of our older people. They do some grunt work in terms of putting out the rubbish and doing that kind of thing, but their job is to engage, connect, make cups of tea, help with food and dining, and really enjoy older people's company. And I just love that program. So if anybody's thinking about conduits or pathways into aged care, it really has been a terrific strategy. And when people would then say, look, I'm going to do nursing now, I'm leaving year 12, I'm doing nursing, we will support them as an undergrad and then we'll support them as a postgrad. So we can support them from 15 or 16 right through until their postgraduate experience in nursing. So it's a lovely, lovely pathway into aged care.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Jenny. It is as someone says, I love your authentic approach. Yes, I agree. I agree with that comment, certainly. Thank you, but the 4 seniors from the committee to know where they can be cared from the people from their homelands. So beautiful, the comments here. So, but we don't have any other questions. So if you have any questions, like in the meanwhile, so you can put in the chat and then we can follow up with Jenny. So that's a great pathway. Thank you so much. It was amazing. So very inspired. The encouraging, inspirational. Thank you, Jenny.
You're very welcome. And thanks for inviting us. I think it's really important to share information and knowledge and engage and connect. And yeah, I think it links back to our vision: loved, known, connected. And and if we can do that as colleagues and professionals, it makes the world a better place. So
certainly, exactly. So this is it. I mean, like we are on the same boat, I guess. Like we are learning from each other, and then the collaboration is the key. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Have a lovely day, everyone.
You too. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Oh, was good. So now another important the topic. So we will turn of the care sport in regional areas. And I would like to acknowledge Anitsa Petrosky. So Anitsa is a highly respected multicultural officer with decades of experience supporting CALD communities in regional areas. So she leads Multicultural Care Sport and the Vivas program, helping carers from diverse backgrounds access the support they need. So she's known for deep cultural insight, community connection, and commitment to inclusive, responsive care. So Anitsa will share what is working in regional care sport, including peer-led programs like Weaver's program. Welcome, Anitsa.
Thank you, Selene. I just want to comment on Jenny's presentation. I really enjoyed that, and I think she had some good points there. Lovely, and it's a good organization to work with. Yeah, terrific. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully it'll work. Just as, okay, here we go. Okay, so thank you, Selene, for that. And I just want to mention that today I'm going to be focusing on the CALD carers in the Illawarra and looking at the processes and how we support carers in this region. So before I start, though, I'd like to acknowledge also the acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands upon which we meet and work. And today I'm from the Darawal people land. And I'd like to offer our deepest respect to elders past, present, and emerging. And I extend the respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Okay, so just a little brief statistics, I'd say, just an outline of how many carers we have in Australia. There are over 3 million carers in Australia and 500,000. Are you seeing my notes as well? No? Okay. over 500,000 of called backgrounds. 1 in 4 are born in a country where English is the main language, and 16% of all carers in Australia identify as people from called background. Who are carers? Well, I just thought we defined what a carer is. A carer can be anyone, regardless of age or ethnicity, who provides unpaid care and support to family members, friends, or even neighbors. Carers support people who are frail-aged, living with a disability, mental illness, chronic conditions such as diabetes, heart disease, cancer, or people who are affected by addiction of alcohol and other drugs, and also caring for someone with terminal illness. So a carer can be anyone varying in different areas. Called carers experience poor well-being and higher levels of distress compared to Anglo-Australian carers, and are more likely to experience social isolation. I'd like to touch on called carers navigating the system, the aged care system, and identification and lack of financial support. Carers have difficulty identifying as carers or person in need. They have limited financial assistance because they don't identify as carers, so they're not aware of the financial allowances they can get from the government. And a lot of them will refuse any type of payment. I remember having a Vietnamese carer support group, and we tried to get them to apply for a carer allowance. And their answer was, we can't do that because the government helps us enough. We don't need to have that money as well, even though it is their right. Stigma of care needs, such as mental health and substance abuse, shame or embarrassment associated with mental health or addiction, fear of judgment prevents seeking help, culturally and family obligation of care, strong sense of duty of care for family members within the home. So they feel it's their right, it's their duty to look after the elderly, their parents or neighbors, or a brother or a sister. Resistance to extend to cultural expectations, reluctance to join groups that involve others and family issues. They have privacy concerns, hesitance to share personal or family matters, language barriers and lack of awareness of services. So they have difficulty understanding or navigating services due to limited English. Services not promoted or explained in a cultural appropriate ways. So a lot of times the information they might get is written in a way that it's hard for them to understand. Sometimes it's even hard for people who speak English, let alone for someone who doesn't understand. And written information sometimes can be really difficult. Lack of services in regional, rural, and remote areas. Few or not enough programs of professionals. They have travel distance and transport access issues. So that's an issue to get to services or to get to anywhere because of those issues, especially in remote areas. High level of distress and social isolation. Emotional and mental strain. Little social support or opportunities for connection. For this reason, they do not identify as carers and they do not get services. So to alleviate some of the barriers with accessing services, MCCI has been supporting carers from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds for over 6 years by establishing a carer support group that meets once a month. This group provides carers with a safe, supportive space where they can share their experience without judgment, connect with others, and learn from those facing challenges. I think sometimes we focus too much on the language when we talk about getting groups together. And in our group, we have many different cultures, but they have all something in common. They are all carers. They support each other. They make friends. They expect new carers with open arms, and they include them as part of the group with no hesitation. I just want to mention that all of these photos that you are seeing at the moment are actual photos of our carers who attend our group. And I want to share some stories from our carers. This is Bara. Bara came from Tunisia with limited English or any family support or friends. She felt totally isolated, alone, caring for her husband. Now Bara has made many friends who she goes out to for coffee. She has also started to volunteer with our Access program, visiting residents within nursing homes. So her coming to the group has made friends with not, we don't have any other Tunisian carers, but we have a lot of Macedonian, Italian, Portuguese, and she has kind of fitted in quite well with them and talking with them and meeting with them. She's made a lot of friends and she feels much better. And you know, you can see by her what she has told us. It's good experience. They guide and help me. I'm happy here because before I felt very alone. So, you know, it's getting them out of that isolation. Then we have Betty from Hong Kong. Betty looks after her husband with dementia. She heard about our MCCI Carers group at Dementia Forum, and she started to come to the group. She met Gorda, and that's Gorda with her. That photo was taken at one of our gatherings at our retreats, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. This is just the two carers where the program has changed their lives for the better. And we have many more in those situations. I would now like to take a few minutes to share how MCCI began its journey in supporting carers from culturally and linguistically diverse cult backgrounds, and reflect on some of the challenges and successes we've experienced along the way. So establishing a support group for cult carers was not an easy process. One of our biggest initial challenges was simply identifying where the carers were and how we could reach and engage with them in a meaningful way. Fortunately, we were lucky to receive some funding from the Department of Community and Justice, which provided us with the opportunity to conduct research into the unique needs and issues faced by cult carers. While many of us had assumptions about their challenges, it was essential that we heard directly from carers themselves. Working in partnerships with the University of Wollongong, we developed a community awareness campaign to better understand their lived experiences and begin laying the foundation for a strong supportive network. Our social marketing campaign initially focused on two communities in the Illawarra, and that was the Vietnamese and Turkish communities. But we knew there was much more than just those two communities, so we consulted widely with the local cultural groups and organizations, including Italian, Spanish, Greek, and many others. So this involved visiting social groups, engaging with key community leaders, such as church leaders, committee members, and being present at sporting and social events, going to local farmers markets and shopping centers. We even set up information tables, made connection through the local Islamic mosque, reaching out to as many communities as we could. Based on this groundwork, we decided to launch our carer support groups in 11 different languages. To ensure each group was culturally appropriate and accessible, we employed key people from within each community, fluent in respective languages, to lead the groups. These community workers were crucial. They not only knew who we could speak to, but also had trusted relationships with many people who might need support in their caring roles. This approach has allowed us to create a safe, welcoming space where carers feel understood, connected, and supported, something we continue to build upon today. We have also developed resources aimed to promoting well-being for carers. One key part of this was a series of posters designed and distributed throughout the communities. These posters featured photos of local people from the specific communities involved in the campaign. By including familiar faces, people who were active, engaged in the project, we made the messaging more reliable and trustworthy. This approach helped community members feel personal connection to the campaign and increased its overall reach and impact. In addition to the posters, we also developed some other resources. We have the Carers Booklet to help carers access relevant resources and services. And rather than just listing information on where they can get help, we took a storytelling approach, following the journey of a couple navigating the care system, couple of older people. This allowed carers to see themselves in the story and better understand steps they might take in their own situation. And then the booklet was translated in 10 different languages, and it's still being used today across the communities in the Illawarra and Afar. When our initial funding came to an end, we were no longer able to continue supporting 11 separate carer support groups. After careful consideration, we made the decision to transition into one multicultural carer support group. This allowed us to continue providing meaningful support while bringing together carers from a variety of backgrounds to share their experience and learn from one another. I'm proud to say that this group is still running today and continues to offer a safe, welcoming space for called carers. And I am very passionate about this group, and I've always stated that to everyone that, I'm very proud of what we've achieved. So in addition to running a care support week, we received some funding through Coordinator to implement the Weavers program with our carers. This is a peer-to-peer support model that connects people currently caring for a loved one with someone who has lived that experience, someone who has walked into their shoes. The program was developed by the Australian Centre for Social Innovation. We delivered the program over 2 years, during which we recruited and trained former carers to become weavers to support other carers and understanding to their carers in journey. So they provide a lot of support for the carers to make them understand how important it is to ask for services and ask for help. As carers face many challenges in their personal well-being, and I think that's very important to also look at those issues they are facing. The Weavers program offered meaningful support in helping them navigate these difficulties. It created opportunity for carers to connect with someone who had lived through the similar experience, who share practical insights from their own journey. And they did this through regular conversations. They might go out for coffee, have a catch up, go on the phone, whatever is suitable for them. Weavers helped carers feel less isolated, supported them in making informal decisions about accessing services, and providing a listening ear during time of stress and loneliness. A lot of times carers will have issues just before, the group meets once a month, they might have something. Prior to that, they will contact their weaver and talk to them and come to some resolution. If that can happen, then they come to the workers at MCCI. I'd like to share something with you now, because through our regular meetings and hopefully this works, through our carers, we noticed there were many were experiencing high levels of stress and had little to no time to themselves. We had some carers who had never been out of that house for years, just caring for the husband. We had one lady, 6 years, she was looking after her husband with dementia, and she had not been anywhere or made connections with anyone. So we're talking with the carers. We thought, maybe it's a good idea if we have a little bit of a getaway so they can, recharge and start again. Even if it was for 2 days, and, that might help them. So our health and well-being retreat was born from this conversation. We had a 2-day retreat, and I think the video will tell you a bit more and explain it to you better than I would. If it works, hopefully it'll work. Oh, I hope everyone enjoyed that video. Um, it's very, I always get emotional when I watch that. Um, and the Weaver program did end from that funding, but we were lucky enough to receive funding for Carer Gateway Benevolent Society for another year. So we did continue to run the program for another year as it was run by the Weavers from Taxi. Um, Unfortunately, that funding always also ended. So we are still continuing to run our program from our own organization. So, from the campaign and from the retreats that we ran for our carers, what we found is that there was three things that carers really, really need. And one is support, the other one is company, and the other one is advice. I might be going over time, but I'd like to continue. I would like to leave you with 5 key suggestions about working with CALD communities and CALD carers and how to engage CALD carers within your programs. So it's about knowing your community. Take time to understand the demographics of your area. Which culture, language, groups are representative in your community? Building knowledge will help you identify and engage with CALD carers more effectively. Work in partnerships and collaboration. So, working with other communities and services. Partnerships are key in reaching carers who may otherwise remain invisible because we can't know everyone everywhere. So we need to have that contact with others. Keep carers informed. That's very important. Clear and accessible information is important, especially around aged care and the reforms that are coming through us. But at this time, the service changes is essential. Ensure carers receive updates in a way that is culturally appropriate and in their preferred language and in a way that it could be understood. Consult with CALD carers. Engage carers directly to better understand their needs and their issues. And this will help you shape services that are relevant and respectful and responsive to cultural values. And peer-to-peer support is so important. I think this it empowers them. It's very empowering. A carer who has navigated the system and is in a stable place may be able to offer some help and some emotional support to someone just starting their journey. Someone who has walked in their footsteps, and that's very important. Last, I want to share this beautiful photo of one of our carers supporting another carer. It actually captures the importance that carers do need care themselves. Sometimes the greatest support comes from someone who understands exactly what you're going through. Carers need to know that someone actually cares for them. And moments like this show us how powerful that connection can be. And these are our carers the elderly woman is our carer, and the other one is our weaver, who is also a carer, and just giving her that support. They've connected so well over this that they see themselves as mother and daughter, and it's absolutely beautiful and inspiring. Thank you for your time and listening to me. I hope it was insightful and helpful in some way. Thank you.
Oh, Anita, it was great. Like I can see the all applauses. It was amazing. So, like 100 times I saw that video, but each times I just feel like teary. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's really showed like how important the CALD care is, especially in regional areas, like the way getting the right support can be harder. So their dedication and strength really, really stand out. So I just go through, like just before we go to break, like I'm just looking for, it's a wonderful videos that there are lots of comments on your presentation, Anitsa. So they really like your presentation and then video, really moving as a carer myself. It's really touched the nerve, inspiring work. Congratulations. Lovely stories. Do you have any evidence or opinion that organizations are concerned about the skills of internationally qualified registered nurses? interested. I don't know, is it related
What's
with
that gonna
that
do? Yeah, I don't know if
presentation?
it's related to this.
Yeah, so maybe it's just for the vertical. So James,
Just
like
a
we will
comment.
just come back to, yeah, all carers. So interested in your engagement with men as carers.
Okay, maybe I can say something about that as men, as carers. We have had some men who have attended our carer support group. And the community, the majority of carers they're fine are women, but there are men also who are caring for their wives who have dementia. So we have had male attending, but it somehow doesn't seem to last for long because I think the issues could be a bit different for men and women. So we were actually looking at supporting men and running a group, but funds somehow doesn't allow us to expand to that area at the moment. But we have been looking at it.
Yep. Yeah, great. Yes, we do. And the Charlotte, maybe she already mentioned some website and also a couple of that care for each other, one with chronic pain, one with a chronic illness. Yeah. So if you have like the more questions, like the please like put in the chat. And also I just want to mention, so I can see from the chat like some individuals are having there's some technical the challenges. I'm so sorry, like individually, like you're going through with that, like and then like the team is like the who's responding to you. And then they will try to help you as much as they can. So if you have any technical issues, like please put on the chat and then we will try to respond. Now we are going to take a short break. Please stretch, grab a cuppa, and then we will come back like 1:15 on New South Wales time. Come back on time. We have a very exciting interactive sessions are coming up next. So see you soon, people. Bye.
Oh my God, it's a headache.
You're on, like you can put yourself on mute, Anitza. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So all next sessions, I think there's some people are already leave, and then we are just waiting them to come back. So, but we will continue for the next the presentations. So our next session focuses on partnerships. So how rural and regional aged care providers can work more effectively with CALD organizations and also communities. So please welcome Henrietta Podgorska. Henrietta is the CEO of Umbrella Multicultural Community Care Services in Western Australia, with a background in social work and multicultural leadership. So she's a strong advocate for equity, inclusion, and co-design, ensuring all the people from diverse backgrounds are front and center in aged care planning and policy. So she will discuss co-design, trust building, and how to strengthen support systems for CALD seniors. Welcome, Henrietta. Hope you're here.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm going to share my slides in a second. Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. Jó reggelt kívánok mindenkinek, Henrietta vagyok, és nagyon szépen köszönöm, hogy ma itt lehetek önökkel. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Henrietta, and it's an honor to greet you on my mother tongue Hungarian. Thank you again for allowing us to talk about this. We have been engaging with the regional communities and regional counterparts in Western Australia, and some of the learnings are already coming through. But I just would like to acknowledge that Umbrella is based in the metro, and I would like to encourage all of you to engage with your regional networks and communities, because their voices is what we need to amplify here. Thank you so much. So, saying that, I would like to acknowledge the Whadjuk and the Binjari people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which our services are based in Borlaw, Perth, and pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. We also acknowledge the elders of the cultural and linguistically diverse and the LGBTIQ+ communities, as they are the inspiration behind our mission and vision. A little bit about Umbrella. So we have been around for the last 25 years, built by the communities for communities. And because of that, we have a lot of our projects are still working with ethnic communities on the ground, as well as we provide home care services, as government subsidized home care services. But our outreach project portfolio is growing rapidly. So I encourage you to visit our website and have a look at what we have done before and what we are up to. We're always up to something. We have around 1,000 clients from 71 different countries and the LGBTIQ+ community, and also we speak 61 languages. So actually it's 72 now, so I have to update that slide. And yes, we are doing all of this, including this presentation, a part of our mission and vision to make sure that we improve system and accessibility for all. So I want to talk a little bit about statistics, and I'm so sorry, it's going to be a little bit more about Western Australia, but I encourage you that if you can look at these data when it comes to your regional areas, depending on where you are from the country, it's going to differ slightly. It's really important that we acknowledge and also assess where our individual organizations and reach sits within that multicultural ecosystem, because then we can build on that and strengthen outwards. So when it comes to Western Australia, we are very, very diverse. 1/3 of Western Australians are from another country, so we're born overseas. 60% of them first or second generation. And then we have 249 languages, 221 countries, and 130 different religious affiliation represented just in WA. So very, very diverse. But when it comes to our seniors, first of all, how does that replicate and looks in the region? So we have done a extensive data analysis of the region, so we can see where most of the seniors are located and work with. So we identified especially the goals point of Geraldton, which is up north. You can see right in the middle of Western Australia. But generally, it was good to see where we need to focus our efforts, because none of what we're doing with the regions right now is paid. So we're utilizing other opportunities as well as our networks to go out and ask the question and amplify some of the issues that we are hearing, because it reaches the metro, but it's just not in a cohesive way. And still we are missing and lacking data and quality and quantity information when it comes to aging in place for multicultural communities. So it's still a little bit patchy when it comes to that, and we want to improve that visibility for those communities in the regions. But generally, this is how it looks like, and you can see on the left about the different communities that are mostly represented, which is reflecting on the migration history of Southern and Eastern Europeans, as well as the new migration from Southeast Asia. So when it comes to populations, generally the multicultural populations are aging rapidly, much more than their mainstream counterparts. They're more likely than not, they're not going to speak English well. So around 30% have issues when it comes to English not speaking well. What we're also seeing in the region, as often as not, they learned English, but then unfortunately, because dementia kicks in, their native tongue returns very rapidly, and then the community all of a sudden have to deal with a Russian-speaking person that they have never had to deal with before, and they don't know if they have any Russian person in that town of 60,000. So it's a very complex situation when it comes to the region. So everything is really amplified. We know that most of the multicultural seniors, unfortunately, do return to the metro. So 90% of them located in metro areas, which means that we are leaking multiculturalism from the regions back to the metro because there's no services or supports available that is meaningfully addressing those needs. We also know that they more likely than not will need more support, as well as their education level may not match with their literacy level that we're expecting when it comes to that communication. So setting the scene, so we have visited a few areas, including Geraldton, Albany, and I also went around through another program, but I definitely used that to talk to people in Katanning and Collie and other communities down south to their aging experience when it comes to multicultural. So what we're seeing is that what we have done is that we have a rapid mapping. I've reached out to our local departments, and I just would like to acknowledge Office of Multicultural Interest, the engagement team at Department of Home Affairs, as well as some of our other counterparts who very rapidly responded of yes, no worries, here our network. I can't share the email, but I can share your email, your communication, so they can reach out to you, and that worked absolutely fantastically. So we actually filled up very quickly our time there and had a good conversation, and I'm hoping that I can do the same thing for Karata, which is up north, as you could saw the very red there. So hopefully I will have another conversation with another group, but it was really important. And also Department of Health and Aging, I actually were able to go to Geraldton with them, and then we were returned later on through another project. So we had a lot of good engagement, especially in Geraldton. That was identified one of the highest ghost points. So again, good to know where, because we don't have unlimited resources. Also listening to community realities. So I went there. I had information in my backpack, but I only had like, guys, what's happening? Tell us. And there's some very interesting stories that came about, which I'm going to talk about in a second, as well as some of those ethnic clubs and associations are struggling because of the numbers and aging numbers. So we've seen decimation of some of the Italian community groups. They just literally aged out, and the new community didn't come in. The second and third generation, which is one of the issues in Australia, completely disengaged, and they don't follow or they'll continue the language and culture in the area, or they completely moved out of it. So we've seen a lot of heartaches, to be honest, in the regions. I hope in your area there's better stories, but I'm not gonna lie, I cried at one point. That was just very, very sad. What we have seen, especially when it comes to the service provision, is very short staffing. So the thing is, here in WA, in the metro, we want bilingual staff with bicultural staff, and everybody's fighting over the Italians and the Polish, and then is obviously the Cantonese and Mandarin speaking staff. But in the regions, it's a whole other. There is just absolutely nothing. As I said, it's just random people, random people who maybe there's a Russian speaking neighbor somewhere else. So it's extremely limited, even more than what we see in the metro. Many of them, all the providers, are doing the absolute best to engage, but there's obviously the burnout risk because there's just so much to take on at times, and there's a very limited transportation support when it comes to bringing. And we have a lot of farmers. So in Geraldton, there's a massive area of Vietnamese farmers, for example. So it's just the transportation to a bigger area can be a little bit different. Regional providers, critical knowledge. So obviously a lot of the trainings happening in metro here in WA, and they're missing out on some of those. So we are trying to connect hybridly them and sharing information with them to make sure that they can get that information, especially about engaging with multicultural, because I'm going to get into that, what we have observed. And of course, the hybrid capacity. So we really need to make sure that we better connect the regions with the metro, but as well as acknowledge that they have their own resilience and they have their own support network. It's just really make sure that we don't come in as a we know it better, but rather look, this is what worked in the metro. Let's connect some of those community groups with their metro counterparts. And let's see if somebody from the Russian community, and I'm using that one example, wanting to connect from Metro to Geraldton, so they can at least have some communication over the phone or on tablets and so forth. So again, we need to be a little bit creative, which have not been happening as much between Metro and regions, but that's the resource sharing. So what we are key challenges is, again, the awareness, which is, I guess, is just normal. Awareness about the HK system, unless there's something bad happens, it's not really prevalent in any groups that we are working with, but especially amplified when it comes to regions. Service deserts, 100%. There is no multicultural service provider of service provision in Western Australia and regional towns. And so there is a question, and then it happens ad hoc. And that's what I have observed as well, especially when it comes to language and communication. So in most, what I have seen, which is a good news, communication, language was under communication, for example, in referrals, which is really great. Indeed, language is a communication tool. That's not a barrier or, all of the way that we are describing languages. But when it comes to culture or religion, that was missing. So we had like a respite facility that had language in there, but not about the culture or the religion. And I'm like, so are you able to cater for halal? Are you able to cater for Ramadan? Are you able to cater for Sabbath? Are you able to cater? And they were like, well, no, this is just a respite facility. And I'm like, well, yes. Or we had like a provider that was doing really, really well. They know all the diversity in their workforce. They all know diversity in their residential facility, but they never matched the two. Like we had one incident. I said, so you have one Southeast Asian client. What do you do with him? Oh, well, look, we had accidentally, and I'm saying accidentally because this is not planned. This is not strategy. Accidentally hired somebody from the same background. Accidentally, that person has a shift with this one person from that one community, and they accidentally find out that they wanted more rice and food with their food, and they accidentally acted upon and told that to the manager, and they accidentally then started giving the person more rice. And I'm like, this is not I don't know what's this, but this is not multicultural approach. This is not cultural safety. This is not cultural appropriate care. But this is what's happening in the cut. Because again, in the Metro, we are guilty of looking at multicultural approach and cultural awareness, cultural safety, and cultural appropriate care as a compliance issue, not as a core business. And that's amplified in the communities outside of the Metro. Workforce shortage has 100%, especially for Commonwealth Home Support Program. And the problem is there that CHSP is one of the first one that most of our multicultural communities engages. So again, that's a really big hindering of getting the right support on time to our communities. Cultural safety, again, as I said, it's very detached. Sometimes it's language, sometimes it's culture, sometimes it's religion, but I haven't seen a document or an information that was actually all three of them considered together, which I think is a miss when it comes to engaging with multicultural communities and transportation. Opportunities to engage with opportunities emerging in regional. So again, I just would like to emphasize that if you are from the regions, I know you guys are very resilient. So don't misunderstand me. I've got humbled to absolute core of what the communities can come up with and support. But the problem is because there's overarching strategy or overarching funding or overarching, understanding of what's happening in the communities. It's you're doing the best you can, but that's not going to be the same for Geraldton or for Albany or other areas in regions, and that's when we can miss and hit. But the communities themselves doing already. They're launching a new HK cooperative, which is a very interesting way of doing services. So the communities wanting to own their own, care services. So they're coming together and see who is in town, what we can do, how we can come together, which I think a really great approach. As it turned out, in Italy, most of the HK services are actually co-ops. So seeing this model starting up, especially in Western Australia, is really, really great. They're just starting up, and this is the first time in Australia that this is happening, and it's not multicultural specific, but I really think that this can help some of those bigger regional areas where we do have multicultural communities. Multicultural associations are definitely leading the way. I would like to acknowledge the Midwest Multicultural Association that I had a good conversation with. Those guys are, making sure that they are there for the communities, that they address those they need. But again, it's more just ad hoc opportunities when it comes to multicultural seniors and aging in the regions, rather than anything planned, or they don't get any additional support, and there's no multicultural service provision whatsoever in their area. And community-driven prevent transport. So again, they are sort of negotiating. They know that the Chinese language school has a bus, so they can get it to the client. So again, it's very ad hoc, but at least they're utilizing their network, their services, their own resources to support. What was very interesting, though, when it comes to some of these associations, so I actually talked to service providers as well. So the service providers sort of were aware of our community. So, oh yes, there's the Macedonian club, there is the Italian club, there is the Vietnamese, there is the Burmese, there is the African, there is the Indian community, there is the Chinese. And I'm like, cool, that's really good. Sounds like a very diverse town. And so I said, okay, so how about your service provision? What is your percentage of multicultural? Oh, we don't have any. Why? So again, it's just so interesting of they know, but they're not engaging. And again, I think there's still a lot of untackled there of why that is the disconnection of service utilization, at least percentage-wise, to see at least some multicultural communities using some of these services versus everybody knowing that the Italian club down the road is struggling. It's just a very interesting. And libraries and community hubs are 100% the lifeline. Just remember, so a lot of our communities, they're moving into these towns because of work. They're not necessarily equipped with the knowledge of Australian services, aged care, and so forth. But one thing we do have in every language and every culture, and that is a library. So they're going to go more likely than not to a local library in their regions to get the support. So community engagement. Now, again, when it comes to engaging with communities, it's really important that we do it with humbleness and as well as making sure that we build trust before. I love seeing all the wonderful pictures of the very diverse looking people on these on certain flyers and websites, but the reality is that's your reward. That's an outcome of a long-standing strategy that happened before you engaged or before you took that picture, and everything else that you're going to do after. Both of them is extremely critical. And often than not, I think the way that we think we can engage or the way we can actually get some of our communities on board is wrong. But we can change our view on this. So hopefully now I'm going to take you on a journey and come on board with me on changing some of the way that we do things when it comes to community engagement. First of all, hard to reach. Now, it's definitely some word that you may fly around when it comes to the regions. I do not think any of our communities in the regions are hard to reach, because nobody is hard to reach. Everybody does their shopping. They have a pharmacist. They have a doctor. They have a school, or their children have a school. They're using some sort of transport. There is always interaction points that we can tap into. We just don't do it because we don't know. Because, and again, we're really good at talking about the barriers of the communities, and I'm not going to go too much into it because this is just a standardized language, culture, transport, money, language, all of that. Yes, that's all can be true. But again, these communities are extremely resilient and they operate, we like it or not, they're going to come together and they celebrate their cultures. They're going to support each other regardless of what we are doing. However, what we need to look at is what are our barriers. So when you go into the region, it's good to know what is your funding, what are you tapping into, get your networks ahead, work on that before. Translation and interpreting. Translation does not equal engagement. Do not translate things unless you know exactly who is it for, how they're going to understand that, and how you're going to distribute that. Translation, one of the most tokenistic way of engaging with our communities, and I think that's not helping again. So again, they're going to be hard to reach because they don't even know that you have that flyer. Co-design. Again, when you're going to the communities, I highly, humbly recommend that you're going to go through this co-design process instead of wanting to co-design everything with them. Just start, because the harder you the more you go into co-designing, the more likely that you need extreme energy and money and funding, which a lot of us don't have. Again, what is your barrier? So adjust your what you want to do in the region. We find that Consult was the one that fit really well with the communities because they didn't know us. We need to build trust with them. We wanted to hear what they are doing. So that was really good. So with all of that, knowing what are your barriers, knowing how you're going into the regions, you people will be beyond your reach or within your reach. And that's how you can adjust your engagement, because it's much more about you and your capacity rather than trying to assess what's happening in the communities, and you have more control over what you can do engagement wise. So map your communities, make sure that you know beforehand, engage with whatever you need to engage. And if you don't know, reach out to PCAC. They are really good at knowing their communities too. Try to get an engagement, try to do desktop research, just know who are your communities where you are going into. Also, make sure that you show up repeatedly. You tell the communities you're not just here and then you disappear. We're constantly in contact now with the people that we have made connections, because we want to make sure that they know that we keep ourselves accountable by engaging. No budget, no barrier. That's fine. We never have budget. Let's be frank. It's not something. Utilize, again, we have the Banbury Multicultural Festival. We have Albany festivals. We have Geraldton. We have projects. That's what we have done. We haven't had funding to do any of this, but we heard the noises. We heard the requests from the communities. That's why we started engaging with them. Start small, but make sure that you are there for the communities and keep engaging the departments to hear what you are doing, because it's really important that, again, we're not stamping over, but amplifying the voices and concerns and needs within those communities, because at the moment they are unfortunately policy-wise very much so ignored, especially when it comes to multicultural communities. And I had some interesting interactions with some of the service providers. They're doing the best they can, but still not. The diversity framework was not even a concept they ever heard, which is a problem, obviously, for us. And celebrate your little wins. Yes, thank you. I think that was 1 minute over.
Wow, Henrietta, I like your approach. So you're very passionate and a direct person. Thank you so much for that. So thank you for highlighting all the critical challenges for the CALD people facing regional and remote areas. So lack of inclusive model and reminding us the power of partnerships and then collaboration is very important. And then the creating lasting culturally responsive solutions, I guess. Okay, so thank you so much. Yes, there's someone just mentioning as well, like you are so passionate, so we can feel it from here, don't we? That was so good. Thank you, Henrietta. All right, people, so we can get your questions. Like I'm just skimming the chat and then I'll just go back to Q&A quickly. Hope we have time. Sorry, like I'm just
Can I just address, Tiffany? Thank you so much for putting that in there. That's one of the things I often say. They're not hard to reach, they're easy to forget. And that's so true. And especially what we are seeing in aged care right now. We do not have any plans. We keep hearing about the diversity framework, which is an outdated legacy document. So again, I encourage everybody to, when they're going into these scenarios, they have the most up-to-date information and support the locals when they need that support. They're going to be very, they're going to be upfront what their needs are. And I think that's when we can tap into some of those networks and connections.
Yeah, but I think it's on the, like I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm just looking at Claire. So hi, Claire from WA as well. So good to see. Yes, please. And again, I'm on LinkedIn, so please connect if you can. Would love to, because I'm going in Karata in September. One of the initial engagement I had a couple of years ago with Karata was very interesting. So they do not have much services in the region, and therefore the reunification of the families in there for multicultural migrant background is very difficult. And unfortunately, because of that, we don't have many elders. Same was interesting with Katanning. So Katanning is very well known for the multicultural community hub. But when we looked at their data, they don't have 65 plus. So again, that's what I said to them, like, yes, you have multicultural for the younger generation. What's happened with the older generation? And we don't see the older generation sticking around in Katanning. And I think that would be a very interesting to see why people are not retiring in place or aging in place for those communities.
Yeah, it's good. I was going to say something, I forgot it. Okay, I'm just moving.
So sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a diversity framework. I think it's on the plan of the government so that it is going to be the review. So I just wanted to mention it. Okay, so thank you. I think so we don't have any other questions at this stage, but like I'm just saying to everyone, like if you have any questions, so please like put in the chat or the Q&A section so like we can follow up with Henrietta after all. And then Henrietta, I believe like the presentation going to be like we are able to get the copy that we can share with everyone.
Yep, so I'm happy to share that so people can see what we are doing, and
Excellent.
hoping actually what we are trying to do is organize a like a mini workshop conference with regional counterparts in WA. So hopefully watch this
Great.
space
Yeah.
to talk to not to service providers but to multicultural groups in the region, so we can again amplify their needs back to the metro, because that's where most of the department is sitting. So if you can do that in your state, I encourage you to do that, because there's a lot of stories that have not been told yet, and it's getting a little bit, sometimes it's a bit difficult to amplify those voices otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So yeah, as New South Wales and ACT, we are trying to reach the communities and the directly, and then doing the roundtables as well. So just hearing from them. Yeah, great. Thank you so much. I don't know like how many minutes we have, but I just would like to move the next session, which is I'm so excited about it, because we are going to hear directly from you audiences. I just would like to introduce you to Tiffany Schwarzkopf. Actually, she is. I just wanted to acknowledge as well, like she organized this the forum. She's behind the scene and then did everything. So thank you so much for everything, Tiffany. So you did amazing job. So she is a project officer at MCCI, is working through PCAC program to support aged care providers in delivering culturally inclusive services. So Tiffany brings over a decade experience in culturally inclusion and government engagement. So she will guide us through the key issues and lead a reflection on what is working, what needs to change. So we are with you, Tiffany.
Thank you. I realized my camera wasn't on. Thank you so much for that introduction. That's really kind. And thank you again, Henrietta, as well, in terms of talking about the partnerships with community. I think that is such a key part of supporting aged care in regional rural areas, is that community support where it's available is fantastic. So when I was a kid, my Lula, my grandmother, she lived with me and we shared a room. She was this resourceful, funny, observant woman who was always looking after me. She'd make me snacks that she remembered from her childhood in the Philippines. There was no, Googling or TikToking recipes at the time. And so it was just all memory. I never saw her as someone who needed care. She was the one who took care of this little child that you see on screen and fed me rice and mango by hand. But one day, I think it was about 13, she moved out. She got her own apartment. And for the first time in her life, she had her own space. She'd been married before, and then she came to live with us. And so she'd never had her own space before. And I'd visit her there and I'd hear all about these friends that she'd made. What I didn't realize at first was that these were aged care workers and she had moved into an assisted living facility. So now, in my role with MCCI, supporting the Partners in Culturally Appropriate Care program in New South Wales and ACT, and I've seen in the chat a couple of you have been asking about regional New South Wales, please send me an email. My email's there. I often think back to that moment in our lives, how proud she was to have something of her own, but at the same time, how hard it was for us as a family to allow others, really strangers to us, into our world, to care for her. And they didn't know her. They didn't know her story. They didn't know our culture. She was Filipino, but she didn't speak Tagalog, the main language. She spoke 3 other Filipino languages, though, and she also spoke English. They didn't know that she survived through wars or ran away from an arranged marriage, or why she really liked Scotch fingers and really hated when you had shoes on her carpet, or that if you couldn't find her, she was probably in the garden collecting individual petals. But some of those aged care workers, these friends, allowed time in their really busy days to sit and listen to her, and were allowed space to do that. And even while they didn't have the same lived experience as her, they made space for her. made adjustments for her and gave her the tools to feel as in control as possible. And that's where our work begins in this section, session, sorry. Reflecting on the things that we already know, that behind every person is a story. For this portion, I invite you to think about your own lula, whoever that might be. Maybe it's someone from your family, a friend, or a person that you've met at your work. Someone whose story reminds you why we're here today. And in this session, we'll focus on the barriers that child seniors face when accessing aged care services, particularly in regional and rural areas. We'll take what we've heard from all of our amazing speakers today and share some reflections and explore how each of us can build our capacity to make aged care more inclusive and respectful and culturally safe. The session is a chance for us to share some issues that we are seeing, share solutions, because somebody's issues might be something you've already solved. And we also might have a chance to raise some common concerns as well. I will say that right after this session will be our Q&A with our representatives from Department of Health, Disability and Ageing, and also the Aged Care Quality Commission as well, too. And so kind of keep that in mind. We have done this activity during our roundtables that we've mentioned before. So we go out to regional areas and we talk to community and aged care service providers and bring them together to understand what's happening on the ground as well. So if you've been to our roundtables, you'll be familiar with this activity. So let's begin by introducing you to two personas that we'll be using to guide our discussions and our reflections today. So we've got Maria and we've got Adrian. Their experiences are representative of many of the CALD seniors that stories that we've heard, CALD seniors that we've met, and understanding their challenges will help us identify ways to improve our aged care service delivery. I want you to think about how these barriers affect their ability to receive quality aged care. And so Maria is 74 years old from a Spanish-speaking background. She lives in a small rural town in Australia where aged care services are limited. Her primary language is Spanish. She struggles with language barriers when trying to access services and feels isolated from the community because she is one of the few Spanish speakers in the area. We've got also Adrian, who is a 79-year-old Vietnamese man who lives in a regional area. He has health conditions like diabetes and hypertension. So while his primary language is Vietnamese, he struggles with cultural differences when trying to access aged care services and understanding the system, what he's entitled to and how things work. So I wanted to raise that if you have somebody who accesses your services that have similar stories to Maria and Adrian, feel free to make a note just with on your notepad or anything about their age, their location, impact of family, any mobility issues that they have, or health indicators and their language and culture. If not, as we move through this session, you can keep Maria and Adrian in mind instead. All right, so we're going to move from the PowerPoint presentation into another app called Mentimeter. We have a couple of ways that you can join Mentimeter. You can either join it with a QR code that's up on screen at the moment. You can join Mentimeter and enter the code that we've got here. But if you don't want to do that, that's completely fine. You're more than welcome to add your responses into the chat, and our team will be adding those comments into Mentimeter for us as well. And I'll also share screen so that you can all see the what's happening on Mentimeter as well. So I'll just give us a couple minutes to do that, and I'll also share the Mentimeter screen as well. Right, I can't really see anything. So if you could just put a thumbs up or something in the chat, if in the reactions to say that we can see. I think I can see that we've got 14 people in Mentimeter. I'll give it a couple of minutes for you. If you've got some tech issues, maybe pop it into the chat as well. We have some people who can help you with that too. All right, so what you might be able to do now is actually add in some of these responses. So we're going to take about 5 minutes here. Write down 1 or 2 things that culturally and linguistically diverse seniors like Adrian and Maria might long for when accessing your service or aged care services, not necessarily your one, but aged care services in your area. If you're in a metro area, if you could pop metro in the front, that'd be great as well. And this could be services that might be missing, services that might be difficult to access, what you wish you could provide them but don't have the resources or capacity to. I'll just give it a few minutes. Again, pop it into the chat if you aren't able to get onto Mentimeter, and we can have some of our team put it over into Mentimeter for you so you can see it come up on screen. I'm going to try and put some background music on as we do this activity. Let me know if you can hear it. I don't think we can. That's okay. So what we're doing now as well is just sorting out some of the responses and grouping them together as they come through. If you're in Mentimeter, you should be able to click and see the groupings as well. We've got a lot of social connection as things that we're logging for. Companionship, being seen, I think is a really big one. Familiar food, definitely that's something that we also are hearing in our regions too. Being able to access cultural foods that are still compliant with their care needs. Language support, help navigating the system, chance to speak in their mother tongue. That's so that really resonates for me as well, because especially if you don't have a lot of people around you that can speak in that mother tongue, you almost have a loss of practicing it as well. Reliable care, someone who they can rely upon in a crisis. Increase support as their needs grow. That's really true, and especially a decrease of capacity potentially of family and other community members to support them to the degree that they need to be supported. Understanding for sure. Cultural connection. Connection is a very big issue, especially those that are culturally appropriate. Also having staff that understand and have cultural competence. Cultural food counselling, mental health services is a big one that we're seeing as well. Definitely. So I encourage you to have a look through each of these. And what I'm going to do is turn on this function called voting, where if you are part of the Mentimeter exercise, you're able to actually vote for your top, I think it's 5 different barriers. And just keep in mind the responses, and keep in mind any of the activities that you might currently have that might be a great solution to some of these barriers as well. All right, what I might do is I might move on to the next one. So for the next slide, we've got what would seniors like, and Adrienne and Maria like about the services you provide. As I mentioned, feel free to pop them into the chat, even if you have the last question, what do they long for? You can still pop that in the chat as well. Yep, so write down 1 or 2 things that seniors like, Adrienne and Maria like about the services you provide, or the services that they can access in your area. This might be a specific practice that you know is implemented, a resource that has been developed, an activity that is done that you've seen. Think about our last slide and some of our identified barriers, and if there is anything you are doing, that would be a great example to share. Bus trips is a huge one in terms of that access to transport. It's a major barrier, especially in regional rural areas. That distance is something that we've heard time and again, and that's a struggle, and it's really great when service providers can be able to provide that. Resources in language, cultural food. And feel free to get a bit detailed in terms of when we're looking at cultural food that you are able to provide that. Are there any organizations that you work with that does help you to support what cultural food looks like in that particular care setting? I know that Meals on Wheels does a lot of really great work out in the regional areas as well. And they do try to have that diversity in their menu as well. So feel free to also pop in some organisations that you might work with that are doing great things too. Bilingual staff, cultural food, music and cultural events for sure. I think music came through as a really strong piece that was very accessible for a lot of organisations as well when we did this activity in some of our New South Wales regional areas, because in terms of language and that connection, you might not have people who can speak that language or someone to practice with, but if you're able to look up rock and roll jams in this particular country from the 70s and be able to trigger some sort of memory in that way, and they're able to sing along and things like that as well, that's a really accessible way for that connection to be made too, and that we heard a lot about that, the use of that as well. I'm just going to group the responses together here for us as well. Cultural food. We are introducing family favorite meals in the menu and sharing the family cultural stories behind the food. I love that. I think that that's like an extension of the typical kind of Harmony Day cultural celebration foods that we have as well, when we actually are able to share the stories behind the foods, and in being able to incorporate that into the menu that's a huge feat. So it's great. Celebrating important events in their culture, and as Henrietta raised before, around being able to adjust, for example, if not just celebrating Eid, but also looking at what does that mean for that person in terms of how they practice those celebrations as well, and what adjustments can be made. We have staff from many cultures who can relate from their own experience to others from different cultures. That's amazing as well, being able to utilize that knowledge base that you've got. Social activities, cultural social group. I might just close this. Group activities, responsive to their interests, and for example, the Hive in Melbourne. Program is active and nature-based activity. Also, cooking produce is enjoyable. That has also been such a big piece out in the regional areas that we visited as well, in terms of access to gardens and access to produce as well. Yep, opportunities to attend the functions that have cultural food, music, dance, art, and conversation, even games. And it's supposed to be fun. I think it's great if you're able to also participate in that and also receive where you can, and be so that you're able to understand how it is that people celebrate as well, and join in all of that fun. Friendly staff. Yeah, definitely that feeling of safety and ensuring that the staff are going to be able to provide that cultural safety and the awareness. I think that one of the things that we also hear is that from really supportive organisations, and we heard that from Warrigal today as well, is that investment of time for staff to be able to do that learning as well, and really prioritise that as part of the strategy. Food and music festivals and music events, bus trips, even movies, choir, yep, everything, all the entertainment pieces. We've got such a strong tool in the internet at the moment to be able to access different forms of media and definitely utilize that. I know that it's something that seems so simple, but it can be such a great trigger for memory and familiarity as well. Inclusion, active inclusion and participation. I think that participation is very key. One thing we always say in our diversity and inclusion trainings is that idea of diversity is being invited to the party and inclusion is being free enough to dance. So I think that inclusion and participation is a very strong piece if you've got that in your organisation. Understanding them for who they are. So language resources, yeah, definitely resources in language. We have in some of the resources that I'll share with you after this, we've got some cue cards that are really helpful that have been developed, I believe, by CCDA in Victoria. But I think that there are a bunch of organisations as well that do cue cards as well too. That has been really helpful. And personalised care, tailored planning, tailored care planning for culturally appropriate care, use of tiers, advocates and trusted persons. That actually gives me a really good segue back into our resources that we do have for you as well. So let me just flip back to the main screen. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing all of that. It's really helpful, I think, to realise that we're all in the same kind of boat and that we have those common problems, but we also have those common solutions. And I think that everyone here has been very generous. And if you wanted to share your details in the chat, about anything specific that you can help with, feel free to do so as well. But we also have another place that you can access resources and support. So we've collated a lot of practical resources from fantastic organisations in one platform called Padlet. So this includes information from the government, resources developed by the entire PCAC Alliance, and other organisations across the country doing great work. So please have a look through as they have things, as I mentioned before, links to cue cards in there. If you have a resource you'd like to contribute, feel free to email me too, and we can add it to the collection. But this goes through, cultural atlas on SBS and just resources that we found that have been helpful. From that list that we've got on the Multicultural Resource Hub, we also have a few things that I wanted to highlight that you should be accessing if you've got eligibility for it. So the Department of Health, Ageing and Disability provides free translation services for government subsidised aged care providers, if they're listed here. You can use this free service to produce translated versions of print and digital materials in different migrant languages, as well as easy read or easy English translations. We actually have in the chat with us today the program director for this, Poonam Daru. She can answer any questions in the chat that you might have in regards to this, or you're welcome to visit the website, email her team, or even give them a call as well. We've also got the translating and interpreting service that you do have access to if you haven't already engaged with them. It's an interpreting service provided by the Department of Home Affairs for people with limited English proficiency and for agencies and businesses that need to communicate with their non-English speaking clients. We hear a lot about the family translators, which are appropriate in some cases, but not all. And for those cases where it's financial, medical, things like that, we've got that as a resource as well. I'll also mention the Aged Care Quality Commission have also got their own library that includes presentations and fact sheets for providers, older people and workers. So this is a very comprehensive library if you haven't already seen it, and it includes information in different languages. Lastly, we're here to support each other, and I just wanted to thank you for sharing your experiences with us in this session. So I will hand back to Selene.
All right, just a minute. I'm trying to unmute myself. Yeah, I came back. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for that interactive the presentation. So it was great. So it is clear that in regional areas, organizations are using creative and culturally responsive strategies that are really making the difference for cold older people. And then today's forum is a great opportunity for us to come together, collaborate and also learn from each other's the successes and also the strategies, I guess. So now we are moving to our panel discussion. So your chance to hear directly from representatives from the Department of Health, Disability and Aging and the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission. So our facilitator is Jared Mansour. Jared, so you are here somewhere, I'm sure. So he's executive consultant at the Centre for Cultural Diversity in Aging, PCAC Victoria. So he's a former commissioner for senior Victorians and a leading a voice in elder rights and inclusion. So the Tracy Crow, acting assistant director, navigation and governance section, the Robin O'Grady, assistant director for the Eastern Region, Department of Health, and Monica Franco, acting director audit at the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission, are joining Jared today. So you are invited to post your questions in the chat or the Q&A section. So over to you, Jared.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Selene. Much appreciated. I think because we're running a little bit earlier than envisaged, I've just got to check that we've got our panel members with us, Selene. So if Tracy and Monica and Robin could let me know if they're here and turn on their cameras, please.
So, okay, so maybe how many minutes we are early?
I'm here, Jared.
Oh, okay. So if we have time, so maybe so we can just go back to Tiffany. Sorry for that. Like I just moved a little bit early. Tiffany, my apology. So while I
No,
was
you're
just
okay.
taking any questions for you. So
No.
all right,
I
like
think
I'm
that
just
that's good
looking
as well.
for
If you do have questions for our upcoming panel in the next 10 minutes as well, pop it through in the Q&A section too. And so that we can have a look at that and see that as well. But yeah, happy to take questions on that last session as well.
So there are lots of, I'm just looking for the chat actually. Sorry, Jared. So we are going back to the previous, the presentation now. So while we are taking some time to all panelists, like if they are not here. So I think Tracy, yes, I heard her voice. But Pia, they shared the YouTube, the link, which is in Nezar and Con. I think it's a great, the case studies, how we are providing services like the person-centered services for individuals. And then like please the visit the Multicultural Resource Hub. So whatever like the Tiffany was talking, all those resources from like the TIS and then the translated informations and also the quality, the commissions, the resource link, all those resources is like a library, online library. So it's directing you to different the resources, like what is available, just related to inclusive the care and then services. Then Jane already had a look at the Padlet. So it looks wonderful resource. Nice to see that the Padlet resource included transcultural mental health line. Yeah. So. And then Ian, the Caring for Cold Seniors toolkit. I think is Ian, this is the Western Australia's PCAC Victoria's resources, I believe. Looks good. And Ponam, thank you so much for sharing the link. All right, do we have any questions? Not really. Okay. So Jared, so maybe all panelists are here at the moment, or just want to check?
We've got Tracy, I think. Tracy, we can turn on the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And
in the meanwhile,
I'll start. That'll give Tracy a great opportunity to do a big promotion. How good is that for Tracy?
Oh, okay. And in the meanwhile, so then maybe audiences can start thinking, like some of the questions. And then start putting in the chat for the government representatives while we have some time.
So the introduction to this panel is that it's an opportunity for us to talk with the Department of Health, Disability and Ageing and the Quality and Safety Commission about the different ways that they support the services that operate in rural areas right across Victoria. And I'm delighted to be joined by Tracy Crowe, who's the Senior Project Officer at the Department of Health, Disability and Ageing. And I thought we could just have a bit of a conversation, Tracy, about the CareFinder program. And would you be able to start by outlining the role that local aged care providers play in supporting the care program finder objectives?
Not have Tracy right now. I think we have Robin. Robin with us?
Well, that's not helpful
Hello.
to ask a virtual question to someone that's not here. So which of the panel members kindly said before they were here?
I'm here.
Who's that?
I'm Robin.
Oh,
Great.
Robin.
All right, Robin.
Sorry.
You win.
Great.
Okay, so from the department's perspective, Robin, we had a chance to catch up yesterday, and you're a key part in leading the steward team. And wondering if you could firstly introduce yourself, what your role is, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about the team and the work that you do.
Okay, sure. My role is Assistant Director in the Eastern Regional Stewardship Team. So we are a relatively new, newly set up team, and we are working with approved providers and all the sector, the aged care sector, to collaborate and improve service delivery of aged care generally. But I can talk more about that. I have been working for the department.
Sorry, go on.
I've been working for the department for about 15 years in a range of areas, including aged care complaints, the aged care funding instrument, and COVID-19 case management, and now in the regional teams. Yeah.
Thanks, Robin. So you've obviously got a lot of strings in that bow of yours.
Quite a range.
Fantastic. If I could just then go back to the steward team, how can the steward team facilitate connections between aged care providers and local CALD communities to strengthen the quality of service delivery?
Just to give you a little bit of background on the stewardship teams, you're probably aware, in response to the Aged Care Royal Commission, the government has strengthened the governance of aged care by establishing local networks in the Department of Health and Disability and Ageing. So I, from a New South Wales perspective, I'm afraid that's what I can give you. There are 4 regional teams in New South Wales and ACT, and they undertake several functions to enhance the experience of senior Australians and local aged care services. And the functions are to analyse local needs, build capacity and capability of aged care providers, particularly those who are at risk. We address and share local challenges and gaps from a services and system perspective, and inform government policy programs and support best practice innovation. So the focus over the past few months, which you're probably aware of, has been for the regional stewardship teams to support the aged care reforms, specifically Support at Home and the new Aged Care Act. That's just recently been deferred, as you would know, to the 1st of November. And that focus was to establish provider and consumer readiness by identifying and implementing targeted provider and consumer meetings and forums to inform and support and educate. So the regional stewardship role aims to improve the aged care system through proactively going out to meet with aged care providers and consumers, to broker solutions, facilitate focus groups, assist in planning and preparing for change, helping providers work out their needs and how to address them. And we also try and link providers to policy areas and government departments. I'll just talk about the design of the stewardship model. It was established so that we reach into rural and remote areas. And since the local network model was initiated in New South Wales, we have set up offices in Wollongong, Coffs Harbour and Dubbo. And there are numerous regional stewardship offices across the country. And the idea is that the stewardship teams play a pivotal role in strengthening service delivery by facilitating meaningful connection between aged care providers and culturally linguistic diverse communities. I just wanted to give a few examples, if that's okay. Our Eastern team recently had a community organisation request a presentation on My Aged Care in Mandarin. So we just worked with the community organisation and the My Aged Care team and the local health district and brought a presentation for that group of consumers and that community organisation. And they were quite happy to be able to hear that information about accessing aged care in Mandarin. I've also
Could I just cut in there, Robin?
Yeah,
So
sure.
when you're talking to a very specific cultural group like that, does the conversation track and the questions track any differently from other community groups? Like, just what happens when you've got a very specific group that maybe isn't quite so highly connected with our local communities?
I suppose we rely on the community organisations and the experts in the field to make sure that the message is passed on. I mean, we as stewardship teams, we're not experts in everything, but our role is to collaborate and coordinate and to listen to what the needs are of the sector.
So would this typically be people that are wanting to access the system for the first time, or they're typically users, or where would they sit in the continuum?
I think typically it's quite a range. I went to a consumer event recently in the Sutherland Shire of about 200 people in the community some were users of home care packages, and they were very interested to know what the changes were that were coming about support at home.
Practical things like the fees and those sorts of things, did they get to that micro level?
Yes, they do. They want to know if they're going to be paying more. That's the most the biggest question. And they want to know when there are going to be more home care packages available. And we try to answer those questions as best we can. And we go out to any organisation that wants information about the current aged care system or any assistance they need in helping to provide and deliver aged care services.
So when you do that in rural communities, would you typically have a platform where you're a virtual platform, not a physical one, where you actively involve local aged care providers with you in the conversations? Like, would they be in the room?
Absolutely. A lot of our engagements are with aged care providers, yes, and a combination of aged care providers and consumers.
I'll just pause there, Robin, because I think we've got another one of our speakers who's joined us. Can I just check? I think, Monica, I saw your name pop up. Am I correct in understanding that Monica might have joined us?
Yes, Monica with us, Jared, yeah.
So, Monica, would you be able to pop on your camera? I can't see you at the moment.
I believe my camera is on. I can see myself.
Now
not
we can
sure
see
if you
you.
guys. Okay,
You're
there
alive.
we go.
You do exist. So
yes,
thank you for
yes,
joining
I
us.
do.
We've ended up starting just a little bit earlier, so we've got a bit more time. So we're doing a progressive panel. This is a new concept. So we're just sort of bringing you in one at a time and a chance for me to chat, and then we'll create a bit of interaction between you. So Selene, this is a new model we're testing for the future, okay? So Monica, we were starting just with a chance for you just to introduce who you are. I've had a little bit of a chat with Robin. I'll bring him back in a few minutes' time. So please just introduce yourself and the work you do.
Firstly, thank you so much for inviting me along. I feel very privileged to be here, and I've been popping in and out today and listening to the wonderful conversations, and it's been fantastic. So credit to the organisers. I do apologise that I am en route and travelling between communities at the moment, so I am not set up in my usual office. So I do apologise for that, but very grateful to be here. So my name's Monica Franco, and I'm the director of one of our audit teams, and I am responsible for the delivery and the regulatory operations division in relation to the NATCFAC program, so our National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Flexible Care, which is a really big focus of my own and my team's as well. I've been in regulation my whole career, and recently moved into the home services space, so really looking forward to that. Prior to that, I was a senior investigator for around 7 years. So been in the community a lot, and have dealt extensively with the sector, both in an aged care and a disability forums as well. So very happy to be here again. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks very much, Monica. So the question, just to open a conversation with you, what support and resources are available to help providers improve cultural capability, including low cost or government funded training? So if we could talk from a support point of view.
Thanks, Jared. There is a lot that's available, and sometimes it's a large volume of information and resources that we have available that it can be difficult to navigate what's relatable to what we need. I know that the Commission especially has invested a significant amount of time, and we have engaged in relation to First Nations, which is part of my expertise. In relation to First Nations, we have recently engaged a third-party provider. So as you're aware, part of the New Aged Care Act implementation, we've come up with a new methodology for auditing future providers and current providers as well. And part of that was engaging a third-party provider to have a look at our methodology to ensure it's culturally safe for First Nations providers. So that's something that we're doing, and we have extensively engaged with the sector as well and have received really positive feedback when we have gone out with some of our First Nation resources as well. Now, that's one component of what we're doing. I know that Robin, you might be able to comment as well, but I know Department of Health has a significant amount of resources that's available as well that can assist providers in upskilling their organisations as well as individual staff in relation to cultural capability, which is really, really important. We have redesigned a lot of our material and front-facing resources to ensure they are fit for purpose. And moving forward into the New Aged Care Act, there has been a significant focus on cultural capability and uplift in that space. Currently, we are actually engaging with a third-party provider to assist us in delivering training to all our assessors as well as the leadership cohort in relation to culturally safe care and what does that look like in the community as well. So there has been a lot of stakeholder engagement to make sure that what we're doing is fit for purpose. So that's what we're doing. However, with the sector and the providers, I think it's really, really great because we have been producing a lot of front-facing resources and material that providers can engage in. I understand there's many avenues, and I'll be Selen, if okay, I'll be able to post some resources as well in the chat for providers that can access. I've gathered a lot of them, and I think that until I gathered all of them, I struggled to understand the volume of the amount of information that's being put forward to the sector as well in relation to cultural capability. There's a large focus on First Nations and a culturally diverse consumer cohort. So I'll make sure to pop those in as well and provide you with an opportunity to engage with that material. I know that we have been doing, especially the executive leadership group have been doing an extensive amount of presentation, stakeholder engagement, in particular to cultural capability. So we've gone out to the sector, and we have a stakeholder engagement team as well that's available to providers. If you wanted to reach out to the stakeholder team within the Commission, we're able to resource and come out in community or in person on site and deliver some training as well, whether that's in relation to the New Aged Care Act and the new methodology and way of working, or whether that's general information about cultural capability. There is a really good, it's called the Centre for Cultural Diversity in Ageing, and we call it this CCDA, and they provide a large volume of videos, training material, and can come out and engage with the sector as well. What I'll do from here on is share a lot of the links. We have our knowledge hub currently within the commission that's standing up some training videos, and in particular to cultural capability, that will be shared, I believe, by our commissioner in the webinars moving forward as well. So that's another way to engage and upskill providers and their staff in cultural capability. That is to no cost of the provider as well. So when we talk about low cost government funded, these are the avenues we would probably direct all our providers to engage with. So Selen, once I'm done, I'll share all the links, and feel free to ask any questions in the chat as well, or any material that you'd like to see in specifics. I'm sure that I can find it. I've got a lot that I've drafted. However, when we talk about training material and resources available, there is a very large volume out there. So I would appreciate if people had any suggestions or any areas of interest. I'd be more than happy to flag those in the chat as well.
Thanks very much, Monica. So that might be my starting point with the chat. I'm very delighted to say that Tracy's with us as well, and I'll bring Tracy in a second. So if those that are with us, all the participants today, if there's particular resources that or access to training that you are interested in, could you start popping some things into the chat or some comments in the chat, and then we'll be able to, we've got some wonderful people behind the scenes that can start to respond to that, which would be fantastic. So I'd also like to bring in our third panel member, Tracy Crow, from the Department of Health, Disability and Ageing. So Tracy, as with the others, would you like to say a few words and introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thanks, Jared. And again, I'll echo the sentiments of Monica and also Robin, and saying thanks very much for inviting me to present today. And I'm sorry I haven't been able to listen in on some of the earlier discussions, but it was really exciting for me to hear that that this forum was actually being put together, and that people were able to come together and share their ideas and, you know, their challenges, and hopefully it's that shared experience that, you know, makes us all the better for understanding that, you know, none of us are alone in some of these issues, but, you know, but together we can come up with better solutions for our clients. I've been with the department since 2003, and I've worked in aged care nearly the entire time, mainly in community care, and for most of that time in the Queensland Regional Office. Since 2017 or something like that, I've been working in Canberra teams, mainly on the Aged Care Navigator pilots, which was the precursor to the Care Finders program, which I'm now working on. In between that, I've worked in the department's diversity and inclusion team, which was one of my favourite areas of the department, but I've also had a lot to do with assessment and the National Respite for Carers program, for those who've been around for a little while. I think I've got a pretty decent background in aged care community care. It's really important for me in the Care Finder space that we, as a result of the Royal Commission, we actually were able to acknowledge and to successfully achieve funding for a cohort of the aged care population who have been largely ignored, I suppose, from the sector for a long time. People just they've never been sought out. They've been sidelined. They've just been forgotten. And so the Care Finder program is exciting in that it is trying to meet that need. It's not exactly what the Royal Commission had in mind. They were really after a care find, a kind of a service that would help anyone who needed care. So I suppose like anything, it's potentially a matter for resourcing, but the Care Finder program is part of a much broader, quite a complex navigation and access support offer that the government funds. So we fund aged care service officers in 85, I think it is, Services Australia offices around the country, and aged care general services officers are also trained in basic aged care being able to help people to connect to like the computers, so that if people want to have a look at what's on My Aged Care and investigate that, but they don't have a computer at home, they can assist people to do that. They can also connect them and organise appointments with the Services Australia's financial information service, the FIS officers, and they are able to provide people with more complex financial information that can help people in making decisions about their aged care. In terms of the Care Finder program, it's been going since I think services commenced January 2022. So we're just coming up to the end of the first stage of our the evaluation of the program. It's been independently evaluated by Australian Healthcare Associates, and the second report on the program is likely to be published on the department's website within the next 3 or 4 weeks. Basically, the report is saying that the program is meeting its short-term goals, and it's on track to meet its longer-term goals, but it has some challenges, and some of those challenges are things that we're all pretty well aware of in terms of some of the limitations in the sector at the moment, and that's really around a care finder can assist somebody through the assessment journey, which may be lengthy, but then at the end of that journey, if there's no services available, then it's very difficult for them to connect to anything. So that is a real challenge for our program. But I'm just delighted to be here today, and I'm really I've got some things that I've prepared to share in terms of how I think aged care providers can work with the Care Finder program to improve access for multicultural communities to access aged care in regional areas. But I'm also here to make sure that people know where to come if you want to talk to me about how the program's working and how you think it could work better as well. I think I'll stop there, Jared.
Thanks, because that's actually a nice segue into my question to you, and it was exactly going to be that. So particularly in the environment where in rural and regional parts of Australia there can be limited number of providers and services available, what is the type of positive or meaningful role that local aged care providers can have with the Care Finder program?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Jared. So I suppose the number one thing I would encourage all aged care providers to do is make sure you know who your local care finders are, and that you are referring your clients and people whom you work with that you think are eligible for the program. Make sure that you're referring to them to the program for starters. The care finders, all care finders must be able to support people regardless of their background, regardless of whether the person comes with issues of homelessness or risk of homelessness, whether they come from a CALD background, whether they may have mental health issues or whatever their situation is. Care finders are available to assist anyone who needs that additional care. We're talking about the most complex cases, and so it's not a large group, but it's a complex group, and these are people who need more support. And the constant feedback that I receive about the program is that it's great that the Care Finder program doesn't limit the amount of time someone can get to receive support. So a care finder is able to spend as much time as they need to get that person connected to the care that they need. So that's really important. Look, I think it's really important for aged care providers to address barriers in relation to misinformation in the community. And what I mean here is we hear a lot about people from CALD backgrounds thinking that you have to be an Australian citizen to access aged care. Now, that's a real barrier, and it might be a barrier for your people, for people that you come across, for your communities. Please make sure that that's something that you don't assume that they know, because a lot of people won't say anything and they won't ask for help because they don't think that they are that they're eligible to receive it. So that's a barrier that we're really committed to trying to break down. I really would encourage aged care providers working within core communities to make sure that you spend time with with the older community, helping them to understand what aged care looks like in Australia, because it's different and it offers different things for different people. And I think it's really important that people understand that, you know, the country where they may have come from or grew up may have really different government supports to the way, you know, we're hoping to do things in Australia. And by no means things aren't perfect here, but at least help them to understand that there are things here that they are eligible to access and that they are, you know, welcome to access. And I think that that education role is really important. Managing expectations, I think, is an issue that probably speaks to your question, Jared. We know that we work in a sector with limited resources and that people are having to wait to access services. That's not ideal. And we're hoping that with the changes that are now coming in on the 1st of November, that once that settles down, that we are going to see an improvement in access to packages. But until then, it's really important that that we try to avoid crisis situations. So waiting until someone is at the point of crisis before they start thinking about what aged care means for them. So we really want people to encourage, we want to encourage old people to talk to their family about their wishes, what they want to do, and to understand their choices. And
Tracy, I might just jump in there. We've got a couple of really good questions in the chat, and I'd ask people to continue doing that. But just before I do, I just want to step a little bit further along the journey and bring Robin back in. There's a lot of focus, not surprisingly, by aged care providers on the new standards on compliance. And if I think about the Steward program, what sort of support might be available to help smaller providers in relation to inclusive person-centred care? Is that an area that the Steward program can move into or moves into?
I think that we could certainly find them the support they needed to find out about any new standards. There are new standards, and there is a lot of concern, I think, from providers about the new standards, and we can collaborate with the Commission to educate providers about that. Yes.
And Monica, could I bring you in on that as well? As mightn't be exactly the area, but the role of the Commission and with the sort of rural, smaller providers, often the challenge is there's just less resources available. What type of practical support can the Commission provide in terms of the new compliance requirements? Looks like Monica had to step out for a second. Whilst we're waiting for Monica, back to you, Tracy. There was a really good question in the chat about are care finders restricted to only being able to help clients once? And one of the things that I think lots of us know and understand, older people or the families might have to reach out to the aged care system on a number of occasions before they get to the point of being either ready to access it or it starts to make sense to them. So what about the idea of people coming back on multiple times or being in one sort of area and needing to move to another? How does that work in terms of the care finder role?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thank you to whomever raised that. So yeah, the role of the care finder is to, however they reach out, whether through assertive outreach or through a referral, they'll work with the person to actually talk to them about what it is that their primary concerns are. They may have issues in relation to not just, whilst they must be eligible and requiring aged care assistance, the care finder is not restricted to only helping them to access aged care. So they might have other issues that are actually impacting on their ability to connect to aged care. For example, they might have, they might be in housing crisis or have other issues in relation to health or medical needs that haven't been addressed or things like that. So the care finder will continue to help that person until they are connected to care, and they will continue to provide to even once the person is connected to an aged care provider and starting to receive services, the Care Finder model allows them to continue to check in at an agreeable sort of time frame, which both the Care Finder and the client agree to. So the Care Finder might say, "Would you like me to check on you, give you another call in 6 weeks' time and see how things are going?" The client agrees. In 6 weeks' time, they might say, "Look, we'll make sure everything's okay. I'll give you another call in another 6 weeks." So it's an ongoing relationship until the point where the client says, "I'm good now, thank you."
So in this particular case study example that was in the chat there, what about because it can occur that a provider maybe can't meet the needs of the person as they change over time, or they want to move to another provider. So if services cease and they're starting again, can they come back to the Care Finder system? So the experience of this particular person in the chat is they were told that they were no longer eligible. They couldn't come back to the Care Finder system for a second time.
Okay, that doesn't really make much sense to me, but sometimes it's awkward. We don't know all of the story, but very happy for whomever that person, whatever that case is, very happy for them to contact the Care Finders at health.gov.au email address, and if you shoot that through to us, I can investigate it for you.
Thank you very much. I think Monica, it sounds like I've just noticed, Monica, you're with us still?
Yes, I am.
You're very mobile. You've got a very interesting day, haven't you?
I do apologise. We did have a matter, so I did have to go into community quite quickly. So it didn't really fit, but I'm here. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Look, we were just canvassing the issue of aged care providers obviously are focusing very much at the moment on the issue of compliance. And one of the really positive things from our point of view, from those of us involved in diversity, is the increased commitment or responsibilities in terms of inclusive person-centred care. So the sort of role the Commission can play in supporting rural providers in meeting their goals and responsibilities and objectives and hopes in regard to inclusive person-centred care.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. And I think there's a lot of work being done currently. And I think the purpose of us engaging the third-party provider was to do a fact-finding exercise about the challenges that providers will be experiencing. We understand that under the new standards, as Robin mentioned, there is a large volume of uncertainty in the sector about providers becoming compliant with the new standards because they are quite complex and I think they're about 14% different to what they were previously. However, that 14% is quite significant for providers, and especially providers located in regional and remote areas, especially in my team where we have those providers. I think that it's about proportionality and complexity of providers. So I think that us as a commission will be doing a lot of work to ensure that we're proportionate in our auditing practices and in line with the size and complexity of the provider. I think often what has occurred in the past is there has been a volume of a uniform approach and not much of a complexity and a lens of the size and analysing the services delivered by a provider. And I think what providers can do is to get prepared for that is about engaging with us quite early on. So we know that now the New Aged Care Act has been deferred to the 1st of November. This is a really good opportunity to start engaging with the Commission. And I think that I'm more than happy to be a point of contact for particular providers that may have that uncertainty within their space as well, to have any questions raised to myself about early engagement. How do we become prepared for the new standards, but also to ensure that we're providing person-centered care, right? So there's a lot that we can do, and there's a lot of engagement that I can do as well with those providers. It is my area of expertise, so I'm more than happy to engage with providers. And I think it's we are taking a different approach. And I think that if providers were to look at internally within their organizations as well, it's about what services do we deliver? What is the scale of the services that we deliver? What are the complexities that we may experience? I think that's a very good navigation to understand what are the challenges they're likely going to face into future state, right? And I think that proportionality is something that we have been heavily trying to upskill our workforce in, because that's significantly important. When we apply the new standards, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and that's something that I continue to continuously voice in every forum that I go to. Every provider deserves a different lens to regulation, so we need to be very mindful of the provider and where are they, what are they delivering, and how can we support them. So I think that there is a period where I anticipate with regional and remote providers, when we start to head out under the new standards, we are going to likely find a lot of non-conformance. And I think it's about really engaging early with those providers to support them to transition in compliance and assist them in identifying what their challenges and gaps may be. I think that going to a provider in a regional and remote community has to have a different approach to a large-scale provider that's very large on scale, that's very mature in their organization. So I think it's this is a great opportunity, and it's an avenue where providers can start to engage with us now, and we can support them in putting measures in place for November. So day one readiness. It's something we're doing in the organisation, and I think that there's a lot more we can be doing with the sector. So I would encourage, if there is providers in regional and remote communities that are going to have challenges or have already identified gaps in relation to the particular inclusiveness and I think delivering under the new standards, is reach out to us. We're most here between now and then to support you in getting ready for day one and identifying nice and early what we can do to help you in compliance and being ready for the new standards.
Thanks very much, Monica. So I'll put our three panel members on notice. In a second, I'm going to ask you each to give your final 1 minute pitch. What's the one most important point you'd like to leave with? But before I do, just quickly, Tracy, are you finding that sometimes from a cultural point of view that there are quite different expectations amongst the family members that are part of the barrier and challenge to access to services?
I would say it's less about a barrier, but it's more about an expectation and what people feel comfortable with. And I think at the end of the day, we need to focus on the older person and their wishes. And it's very difficult in communities where, I kind of think of situations I know where maybe an older person may have expected their youngest daughter, for example, to look after them as they age, but that younger person has, other ideas for their life going forward. And everybody has a different sort of expectation of what's going to happen, and so that's why I suppose it's really important to have to really encourage people to have these conversations early, and make it be known, make it be out there. And it's hard when people have a really sort of not rusted on, but they've got a belief system that that sort of speaks to a particular expectation or whatever. But I think it's just it's really about at the end of the day, the Act is speaking to the rights of the older person themselves, and at the end of the day, what we want to do is support that person, to give them the best aging experience that they can. Thanks
very much, Tracy. So, Robin, and then Monica and Tracy in that order. So your final minute wrap up. Over to you, Robin.
Might not take a minute, but I would like to encourage aged care providers and called organisations to reach out to stewardship teams. They can facilitate local networking and collaboration. They can organise regional forums and working groups and bring together providers and community leaders, interpreters and multicultural service organisations, and foster collaboration, build trust and create opportunities for shared learning and innovation in the shared goal of improving aged care.
Thanks very much, Robin. And we continue to get some nice little comments in the chat we'll respond to about care finder programs in particular areas. So, Monica, your final 1 minute pitch.
Thank you, Jared. And I think Robin stole a lot of my thunder, but I think that this is about, it's really important to engage with us. And I think that historically, there may have been a divide between the Commission and aged care providers. And I think it's really important. This is a great opportunity to bridge that gap between the Aged Care Commission and providers. So I think this is a really good opportunity. And Selen, thank you so much for bringing us along. I think this is exactly what we need to be doing more of. Start engaging with providers a lot more, because I think that we're all here for the one purpose and we're all here because we care. And I think that's so important. And this has been a great opportunity, and I would continue to I guess, champion and encourage providers to reach out to the Aged Care Commission. We are here to support you, and we are here as well to get you ready for day one. It is a very difficult period, and we're more than willing, and we have done so much work to engage with the sector, and there's so much more that can be done. So my takeaway message from today is, please use us between now and November to support you in getting ready for day one. And we have the ability as well to come out and do regional forums. We can get providers together. And if we see a theme, it can identify a gap in where additional upskilling is required in the sector as well, or what we as a commission can do more to support the providers on the ground as well. I think that's my
Thanks,
takeaway
Monica.
message, Jared.
I'll have to cut you there because I've got to hand back to Selen. And Tracy, you've got 30 seconds.
No problem. Okay, my 30-second thing is, please, so the chat's also talked about where there are some gaps. If you know that people in your community are not being reached by the Care Finder program, whether that's a service of a gap or whether there's some other issue, please make sure your PHNs know about that. If you don't know how to reach your PHNs, please reach out to the Care Finders and we'll make sure they get the information, because Care Finder commissioning, so where the money is going for the Care Finder program, it has to be evidence-based. If you can make sure that they know where the gaps are, so that they will commission, so that they can commission accordingly. And then if you've told them and then we find gaps that aren't being met, then we can do something about that. Help us to help you. Thank you. And the door is always open. Please contact us if we can help. And thanks, Selen.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the Centre for Cultural Diversity and Ageing, Selen, it's been delightful to partner with you on this really important activity. You've heard so much positive feedback. So on behalf of Paul and Rosie and Rochelle that have joined us today, a big thank you to you and your team, and over to you to close.
Great. Thank you so much, Jared and everyone. It was fantastic. So before we close, if that's okay, whoever left with us, thank you so much for staying till end. Could you please open your the cameras that we can see each other, like before we go? As multicultural people, we like human connection, so at least like we can see each other the online platform before we go. Thank you so much for doing that. Amazing. So I can see the faces now. So I'm just talking with people now. That's great. So it was a great day. Thank you so much. So we heard from inspiring leaders across rural Australia who are working hard to make aged care more inclusive, connected and respectful of different cultures, from new ways of working to strong partnership, from supporting carers to improving access to services. We've seen what can happen and when we focus on culture and then working together. And to all speakers, and thank you for sharing your knowledge, your time and your dedication to helping the older people from CALD background. So, and then thank you so much for everyone to join us today, that I'm seeing the faces, like whether you're a service provider, advocate, policymaker or community member. Thank you for the important work you do and the heart you put in it. So we finish up encouraging you to, like, whatever you learn and then like all those information, so to take to your team members, your planning and then your community work. So we will be sharing all those presentations with you soon, but please give us a little time. So it won't be happen tomorrow probably. We will also collect all your questions, follow up with the speakers and the representatives, and then share the outcome from the today's interactive sessions as well, like including key insights and ideas that came out from your contributions. So again, thank you so much, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.